All right, that music means polls have officially closed now in this very heated primary contest for the midterms of 2026. Although, if you're in line, you're watching on your phone right now, you still get to vote. You're in line. You get to vote. The polling places are going to stay open, so don't leave if that's where you're at right now. But Monica Eng, we've spent a half an hour talking about some of these races. Let's go back over the big one, the Senate race, Democratic Senate primary. Do you see this as a two-way race, or is Robin Kelly perhaps poised for an upset?
I know a lot of people who really like Kelly and who voted well.
Two people here did.
You guys
voted for her.
Smart people, a lot of smart people voted for her, but it is seen as those with the big backers, Juliana Stratton and Raja Krishnamoorthi. And Raja had campaigned for since 1989 for this. He's been campaigning for quite some time. So maybe a two-way race, but I'd like to keep hope alive. He has
really spent or raised a lot of money on this. And let's remind everybody the candidates to replace Dick Durbin, who's going on 30 years in the Senate. It's Raja Krishnamoorthi, Robin Kelly, Juliana Stratton. Governor Quinn, is that what this race has been about so far? Who has the most money? Juliana Stratton obviously has all that Pritzker backing. That's the bulk of her campaign money, and then Raja Krishnamoorthi has really amped up the fundraising machine.
Well, he's always been a big fundraiser. I actually signed the law that created that district that first Tammy Duckworth ran in and got elected to Congress.
This is the 8th Congressional?
Yes, and then Tammy ran for U.S. Senate in 2016, so that's when Raja ran for it again. So it's an interesting district. He's been raising money from day one. I appointed him to the Illinois Innovation Council when I was governor. He was a private citizen. I've worked with Robin Kelly when she was a member of Congress. She was also on the state treasurer's staff. And after that, the Cook County board staff. She is a everyday person, understands economics, fights for gun safety and protecting people, and that's who I voted for. But, hopefully we'll get a good senator tonight. Got to get behind that man or woman. I hope they all come together maybe on Friday at breakfast and say all that stuff we said before the election about our opponent, we didn't really mean it. There's too much negative to begin with in politics.
Just turn on the TV.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not good. Democracy is all about laying out your positions, defending them, but not the smear campaigns you saw so much from outside spending in this election.
Jamie L. Green, you've run for mayor. You've been pretty critical of the Democratic Party of late, and especially their progress in the African-American community. So which of these three candidates is best for that community?
Well, I like Robin's authenticity. I also wanted a local, I'm being biased here, I wanted a local U.S. Senator to Chicago. I know both Raja as well as Tammy Duckworth are both suburbans. I would have liked someone who has more of a connection to the communities. And she has fought next to a lot of communities for many years, and she has a record of such. With Juliana, I think that J.B. Pritzker has his hand really tough on this race with putting a lot of money behind Juliana. And I think that's a problem for me because I want someone that's more independent and connected to the communities because they're more likely to answer the call and be accessible and make sure that they're moving forward votes in the best interest of our communities.
I want to bring in Fox 32's Brett Bugansky, who's following a lot of developments tonight as well, including a lot of those congressional races. Brett, obviously it's too early to see results yet. 4 minutes, that would be quite the feat. But what are you watching right now?
Well, it looks like it's going to be the year of the potential comeback, but also a breed of new generational talent when it comes to new politicians, considering that a lot of baby boomers had been running politics for such a long time. So perhaps that millennial, the Gen Z, will end up being the next crop of people who are going in to be the next group of leaders here. But we were talking about voter turnout here and whether it's going to be a good voter turnout or bad turnout for the city of Chicago. Just looking at the data from the primary from 2012, 2018, and 2022, it sits right around that 20% line. So once those ballots start to come in, it'll be interesting to see where Chicago ranks as far as that voter turnout, because we're looking at around those registered voters from 2022, about 1.4, 1.5 million. And the last time when we had a midterm primary, it was around 20% turnout. The only outlier was 2018. This was a big year. This was 2 years after the first term for President Donald Trump. That turnout was around 30% right there. So that's something that we're going to watch as these number of votes come in. But it's been also the year of retirements with Senator Dick Durbin, Danny Davis, Jan Schakowsky. District 9 is going to be the interesting one as well, as far as the new crop of leaders to see if they're going to end up taking over here. But we were talking about another state rep who is looking to go to Congress, Representative LaShawn Ford, who's already had problems voting. And it looks like he got it resolved, but he was not able to vote for about 40 minutes, and they ended up resolving that issue. How? We're going to get those answers in just a little bit, because voting irregularities tend to come up here. We don't know what happened here, but the bottom line is this, is that they said that he had voted already. He said he didn't. And after waiting, they asked him for a provisional ballot. He refused, and something worked out. He was able to vote here. But, you know, he's in a race where Congressman Danny Davis, right when he retired, had endorsed him. And this is a man who couldn't vote in the first hour here. So it'll be looking to get some answers here when this very interesting 2026 primary election.
Yeah, LaShawn Ford running in that 7th district. Brett, do we have any idea what the issue was? Did he was on the record as having voted early, or?
They said he had voted already, and he told them that he did not vote already, and he was waiting around. They said, do you want a provisional ballot? And he said, no, I know what my rights are. And they said something worked out, and election officials worked it out. He was able to vote. So later today, we're going to be talking to Chicago Board of Elections, because potentially we could have an answer about what happened here, because his big thing was, look, if it happened to me, how is it going to happen to the average person here? And he's an elected official. So if this is happening to him, I can only imagine what it's going to happen to the average Chicagoan, if they had any kind of election or.
I mean, there's always a snafu or two in elections, but this is the first I've heard of an actual candidate being denied the vote and something happening here. Very interesting. Speaking of that, Governor Quinn, what are some of your favorite little shenanigans that have occurred on Election Day?
It's happened to me. I always got to vote, but I think when I ran for governor in 2014, the other side called election judges on the south side of Chicago, some rogue guy, saying, don't report until 7 o'clock, 7 a.m.
Yes.
And as a result, a lot of judges didn't show up until 7. And as a result, people who came to vote at 6 or whatever couldn't vote. And that kind of stuff is just plain wrong. You know, it's dirty politics, really. Didn't help any. Although there was a good story. I remember I signed a bill to allow people to register to vote on Election Day. The first time it happened was in 2014. And so it was kind of new. And there was a very long line to vote in the general election. And there was a fella, DeCorda McGee was his name. He waited till 2 a.m. in line to vote. And he finally got to register, and then he voted at 2 in the morning.
Wow.
He voted for me, but we didn't win. But I read about his name in the paper, last guy to vote from registering to vote on Election Day. So I called him up. We went to dinner afterwards.
Wow.
And I saluted him for standing in line for 7 hours.
Wow.
In order to vote. And to me, that's what right to vote is all about. You know,
Reverend Jackson was instrumental too in pushing the same-day voting bill that I remember.
Me and I were good friends on that issue. I told Mike Madigan, he was the Speaker of the House, he said, "Oh, I don't like that at all. We want to know who's coming to vote." I said, you know, we got to change.
Mike Madigan wants to know who his voters are. He wanted to select who his voters are.
Yeah, well, we prevailed. Reverend Jackson and I won that one.
Yeah, I remember.
Mike Madigan, not as close a friend as Reverend Jackson. I would,
No, not at all. Oh, no.
All right. Monica Eng, let's get to this very heated 9th Congressional District Democratic primary. Again, a very liberal district. So this winner here is likely going to be the next congressperson. You've got Daniel Biss, the mayor of Evanston, Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, the influencer and self-described journalist. She corrected me when I called her influencer.
Don't call her influencer.
No, she said she was a journalist. So had written for Mother Jones and stuff like that. And then we've got Laura Fine, state senator. A couple other candidates here, Mike Simmons and Bushra Amawala, Phil Andrew. It's a very packed race. But the three, Biss, Abu-Ghazaleh, Fine, pretty much seen as the front runners here. And APAC so influential in this because Israel, such an important issue in this race. Iran, Palestine, heavy Jewish community, very multicultural community. Daniel Biss, should he be the one that's most confident tonight that he's going to walk away with the nomination?
I've seen some polls that really like him. Jan Schakowsky, of course, endorsed him. It's her seat. It's funny because I've heard so many different theories on this, that the two women would be taking votes from each other, that the two progressives would be taking 2 votes from each other. And other people say that, I was told that Biss and Fine, because they're both Jewish, would be taking 2 votes from each other. It looks like it's Biss's to lose, but one never knows. I have heard polls that Abu-Ghazaleh is actually kind of rising up from behind too. She was hit with some negative attacks from influencers. I mean, I haven't seen confirmation of this, but that people were being offered $1,500 to do a post against her from the left, saying her left bona fides aren't good enough. So what a complicated race.
It's been so complicated. And to underscore that, I mean, we mentioned APAC. There was this ad that they sponsored for Bushra Amawala, who was very pro-Palestinian and not very in favor of Israel. But they said, vote for Bushra. She's a true progressive. My hunch is that APAC must be concerned that Kat Abu-Ghazaleh is really doing well. Would you think that maybe that's a sign she's polling pretty well?
Yeah, I just saw an independent poll on Twitter, I believe by M13, that said that she was leading a few hours ago. So I would not be surprised at an upset here. I think that she has done well digitally, and she's done well being the radical leftist in this race that has energized folks. And we have a low voter turnout. It's about who has the best organization, right? So if she's able to organize enough folks who truly believe in her radical left policies, she can pull off an upset here. As well as Daniel Biss had, the scandal that came out last night in the thick of the wind, which was a little crazy. Even the whole scandal was even crazy.
The night before the election?
The night before the election didn't make sense.
Yeah, there were some posts on social media. This was a tough one to determine whether we should report on this or not, because it was a alleged former student of his when he taught at the University of Chicago that had claimed an inappropriate relationship. Turns out, and she wrote about this, they dated, he was 26.
She was like 20. That makes sense.
They made out a couple of times.
Right.
And then he pulled away and apologized then. So it seems like, whatever that situation was, it didn't seem to be a total scandal.
A total scandal. I mean, they
might
both
feel the way they feel about it, but
yeah. I mean, it didn't make sense. One, that she was not his student at the time. It was a short period of time, and then he also stopped it before anything else went on. So that coming out at the thick of the night and getting millions of views was like crazy. Like, what is this?
Well, we always look for a November surprise, or in this case, a March surprise. But Pat Quinn, has this race been defined by all this special interest money, and is that a good thing for the North Side and Evanston, North Shore suburbs of the night?
Well, no, there's a lot of suburban territory goes into Lake County. It's a very big district. I always thought Jan Schakowsky was an able congresswoman in Washington, and she's supporting Dan Biss. I think the electorate, when all is said and done in this district, it's going to be a little bit on the older side. The statistics show that older voters are turning out more tonight. We'll see how that actually ends up. But I think that if they're older voters, they're going to probably listen to Jan Schakowsky more than anybody, and she was for Biss.
And Biss, the mayor of Evanston, and someone that's been around state and local politics for many, many years. Kat Abu-Ghazaleh obviously getting some criticism for being a recent arrival here in the city of Chicago.
People say carpetbagger.
What's she like a year in?
I think a couple years.
A couple years. I mean, I think that's a problem. I would, again, love to have someone that is actually from here. I think Daniel Biss is a good man. I disagree with some of his policies. I did support him. It was a surrogate for him when he ran for governor. I think, the governor is right. Jan Schakowsky is going to play a heavy hand here in the voters. But I also think that Kat is obviously making a swing here if APAC is playing how they're playing with Bushra and, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening in the late hour. So, you know,
I think
we'll
they're
see.
too clever by half. All these last-minute kind of antics to try and hurt your opponent. It's not really good politics for Illinois or anywhere else.
Laura Fine, another longtime state senator, but this, I remember when you were governor, didn't he lead the pension reform efforts? And he was a very pragmatic guy on that. I remember.
He's very good. He sponsored a bill.
He's a mathematician.
Yes, he has a PhD in math. He knows how to count. But he sponsored a bill that
So he can count votes.
Oh, yeah. But he passed the bill. I signed it after I lost the election, but before I was out of office. It was called Secure Choice. It was really set up to help people who don't have a pension fund from their employer.
I remember this bill.
And it was designed to let people who didn't have that, they could contribute to Secure Choice, which was set up by the state. And it's grown and grown. Lots and lots of people finally have a retirement account. Dan Biss sponsored it. I remember he called me, I was governor, and he said, we're one vote short in the Senate. Would you please talk to this particular senator? Who I came down and I tried to counsel the vote yes, and he did vote yes. Just enough votes.
You don't want to name who that senator was.
Well, he's a fine fellow. He's a loving son of a loving mother. That's all I'm going to say.
Narrows it down.
There was no roads or anything. I just persuaded him that helping people have a pension, private sector pension, was a good thing for Illinois. And I signed that into law, one of my last bills I signed. And it's just grown enormously since 2014, over 12 years. And that was an example of what Dan Biss did in the legislature.
All right, let's go back to Brett Bagansky. Brett, as I understand, there's some early results coming in the Senate race here. Are you tracking these?
Yeah, so right now, and this is all early, at 1%, we've got Juliana Stratton at number one with 12 votes. It's about 41.4% of the vote. Raja Krishnamoorthi with just over 3,300 at 38.9%. And then Robin Kelly with 772 votes, 9.1%. So these are the early returns coming in. And just looking at some of these election results here, it doesn't look like any of the our Chicago area congressional races are coming in. So this is more of the statewide thing, since many people are going to be voting on this. But the early returns coming in right now, Juliana Stratton is the front runner right now. But it's going to be a long night, and there's a lot more returns coming in, especially.
Only 99% more to go here. But Robin Kelly, I mean, kind of notable that she's a pretty distant third in those returns. And maybe, again, this is going to really come down to a two-person race. We got to toss to break. Still a lot more to go. Maybe some more results coming up right after this sponsorship little money-making opportunity. Thanks. right, welcome back. 20 minutes post polls closing. Maybe some lines are still forming outside, and if they were in line before 7, they can still vote. But we do have precincts coming in. We have some reports coming in, some very early returns showing a neck-and-neck, pretty much two-way race in that race for Senate between Juliana Stratton and Raja Krishnamoorthi. And so first we're going to toss it out to our very own Tia Ewing. Well, look at this. We have team coverage. We're all over the region right now covering the Senate race, the Cook County Board President race. Wow, that's a good one we got to talk about in a second. We're going to cover some of these congressionals. But first, let's go to Tia Ewing, who is at the Juliana Stratton campaign headquarters in Chicago. Tia, do the officials with this campaign feel confident in their projections that things are going to go their way?
They do feel really confident, Pierce, and in fact, you can hear the music going and you can really see the energy in the room right now. But how quickly everything changes. If you look at the numbers right now, the AP actually counting 2% of the vote actually has been counted so far. And right now, at this very moment, Raja Krishnamoorthi is up with 15,357 votes, and Juliana Stratton is in second place right now with 10,290 votes, followed by Robin Kelly with 2,934. This is really anyone's race at this point. It is still obviously way too close to call, but you remember earlier today, Paris, I was referring to a recent poll that was done not too long ago, done between March 10th and March 12th, and it showed Juliana Stratton with a 5% lead over Raja Krishnamoorthi. Now, will that actually be how things play out tonight? We don't know for certain. What I can tell you, though, there is heightened security here at Sin City Studios. In fact, we saw a bomb-sniffing dog going around searching the building. We also do know that Juliana Stratton will be here watching those results pour in. That is according to people with her camp. They told us she will be in the building watching those results. As for the governor, we know that he spent most of his day campaigning alongside her earlier this morning through the afternoon. He will not be here. He has his own event. Chuy Garcia, though, the congressman, will be in the building along with some local aldermen from the city of Chicago. But in terms of excitement, I want our camera to kind of like pan just a little bit around the room. You know, this just opened up, the doors just opened up at around 6:50, but you can see the excitement is definitely building here. A lot of people jamming out, obviously, Paris, to the music. They believe that Juliana Stratton has a chance of becoming the next Illinois senator. Now, what will happen in this race? We will have to keep watching these numbers. They are obviously changing by the minute. I'm trying to see if we have another update here. Yeah, numbers still sitting exactly where they are. 2% of the vote counted so far, but I know, Paris, you are watching this closely, and of course, we are your eyes and ears on the ground, and we'll be watching closely as well. I'll send it back to you for now.
Tia, I want to ask you a question as we look at some of these very early returns. You know, she's gotten some criticism that the bulk of her money has come from J.B. Pritzker. She's Governor Pritzker's handpicked candidate. How do they both respond to those criticisms?
Well, she did respond today to the criticism. In fact, she responded at that traditional stop at Manny's Deli, where she said she didn't exactly say that she's received that money full on, but she did say, look at the money, follow the money trail, and look at the other two candidates. She referenced Raja Krishnamoorthi taking a super PAC money and also even accusing Robin Kelly of doing the exact same. Listen, we know it is very clear that Governor J.B. Pritzker has a stake in this. This is really a test of his power. He put up $5 million really of his own money in this race. So obviously he too has a lot on the line. I heard Jamal Green say earlier that he feels like this is not just Juliana's run, but it's also Governor Pritzker's run. He's not the only person, political pundit of sorts, that kind of feel that way. So this is something obviously that is at stake, and we'll have to watch to see how these results shake out.
$5 million or more, depending on these PACs, is still just a rounding error for Governor Pritzker, as we know, Tia. All right, we know you'll stay there all night and keep an eye on the results for us. And now we're going to move across the city over to our own Leslie Moreno, who is with Raja Krishnamoorthi. Leslie, it's very early here, but Krishnamoorthi pulling out to the early lead. Do they look at that as a sign that they're going to keep this lead as these results continue to come in?
Hey, Paris, good evening. Yeah, you know, we saw it go from Juliana Stratton leading to then Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. We knew this would be a very close race, right? And I can tell you that we do have those monitors up here, and everyone is closely watching those numbers. Since you last came to us at around 6:30, I can tell you the energy here has picked up. The doors open here at 7 o'clock. You can hear the music playing here in the background. People are starting to make their way in, and I'll tell you, I just spoke to a couple from Schaumburg, an elderly couple. They tell me they woke up early. They made a whole day out of this, right? They woke up early to cast their ballot at the polls, and they said that they got here early, waited in line outside, and they're feeling really confident about the evening. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, also, we spoke to him earlier this evening. He was at Manny's Deli, also feeling very confident. Yeah, the energy here, again, just very confident, feeling really good going into this. We know it's going to be a very close race. We're expecting a long night ahead of us. We did just speak to the congressman's team here. They're telling us that he is set to speak later this evening. He is scheduled to walk in again with his family, his wife, and his 3 kids. Again, this would be a very historic win for him. Running for Senate. This would make him the first Indian American U.S. Senator from Illinois and the second South Asian person ever elected into the U.S. Senate. Paris.
All right, Leslie Moreno, some optimism there at the Raja Krishnamoorthi headquarters. And we're going to toss to a break right now. We're going to get to Casey out at Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. Can she defend her incumbency for a 5th term, leading the giant Cook County Board government? We will find out right after this break.
Join us.
Welcome back to this primary election night special. We got some results coming in right now in that very heated Cook County Board President race. Toni Preckwinkle, wow. It seemed like Brendan Reilly, the 42nd Ward Alderman, was going to put up a battle here. Preckwinkle getting some heat for the property tax snafus and some of the crime issues of repeat offenders, but does not seem to be impacting voters in this race, as she is up by a wide margin with about 17% of the precincts reporting here. So Preckwinkle looks like she's on her way to a 5th term leading the Cook County Board. And let's go out to Preckwinkle campaign headquarters, I believe in Hyde Park, her home base there. And that's where our own Casey Cronus joins us now. Casey, how confident do they feel that these results are going to hold?
Hi, Paris. Well, earlier today, Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle said herself at Manny's Deli that she is feeling optimistic. She was really relaxed when she was there earlier today, making a series of stops on the campaign trail. As you mentioned, she is looking to secure her 5th term as Cook County Board President. And if she does, she will tie the record for longest time served in this role alongside former Democratic politician, the late George Dunn, who also was in the role for that long. Now, Preckwinkle is campaigning on experience. She's touting her tenure, while her challenger, 42nd Ward Alderman Brendan Reilly, is framing this race as a chance for change. Preckwinkle first took office in 2010 when she made history as the first black woman elected to the role. She also serves as the chair of the Cook County Democratic Party, and today just so happens to be her 79th birthday. She is urging voters to rely on her leadership and the fiscal stability she says she will continue to bring, along with expanding the county's safety net services. Alderman Reilly, however, throughout this campaign has pointed to concerns over county spending, housing shortages, and a troubled property tax system upgrade. In addition to heading over to Manny's Deli, Toni Preckwinkle also went out to Valois, another restaurant, this morning for breakfast. She voted at Kenwood Academy, and now we are at Little Black Pearl in North Kenwood, where she will be arriving sometime this evening. We are told by her campaign manager that at some point she will take the stage, but will likely wait until the race is called. She hopes in her favor. Paris.
And Casey, that might be sooner than some of these other races, as again, she's opened up a very wide lead. And you mentioned these great restaurants that always get action on Election Day. Valois, Barack Obama's favorite restaurant there in Hyde Park. Manny's, of course, everybody's stop on Election Day. We just need Billy Goat or something for the trifecta here. But I want to bring in our panel to talk about these results. Jamal Green, it seemed like if Preckwinkle was going to be vulnerable, it would have been this cycle. Reilly, you know, the downtown alderman has some name cachet, has got some backing from different financial interests. But is this a disappointing result so far?
Well, you know, I think it probably would have been more of an urban candidate that could have beaten her this cycle. And I think, you know, Alderman Reilly just didn't do enough organizing throughout the city. You know, I want to see some change here at some point in the Cook County Board President office. You know, she actually is the first politician that I was organizing with when I was a young boy. Preckwinkle. My mom was her mail lady. So she was the alderwoman of the Fourth Ward. I was taking food around in senior homes, right? So it was many years ago, and I think that, you know, she has had some proven leadership and power, but I think there needs to be change. But most importantly, what change really needs to happen is at the Democratic Party. Let's look at these results.
She's the head of the Cook County.
She's the head of the Cook County Democratic Party. Let's look at how many people are voting. Let's understand that we need a full structural change there at the top of the party. That's what I want to see.
I should say, when she was at our Axios event at the Hideout last week, her walk-up music was, "I was born by the river." And you know what that song is? That's right.
Change is going to come.
So I said, but
change not going to come here on the county board.
I said, but President, if a change is going to come, you won't be president anymore. And she said, I know, but I love the song. And she said that this is a tough moment, and given the fact that the United States has the President of the United States has declared war on us, I think this is really disturbing, and we need my experience and courage to stay in here.
Well, is this a sign that, despite some of the concerns voters here might have about crime, repeat offenders, that the Trump factor really is a giant factor here? The folks that vote in this primaries, they're really motivated by the folks that are going to, quote unquote, protect the city from Trump.
I think she had some very strong ads, especially the Trump Tower and how that came about. That certainly helped her campaign. I've known Toni a long time. I really hope this year, by November, we should have a binding referendum for property tax relief for the people of Cook County and every county in Illinois. This is something the county board president, with all of her friends, could help get legislators to vote to put it on the ballot. Other states, just the other day, state of Washington passed a millionaire amendment to give property, well, in our case, we need it for property tax relief. They have tax relief in Washington. Why should those who declare more than $1 million a year get all the tax breaks, and everyday people in Cook County get higher property tax bills.
While you're on that subject, the Cook County Assessor, I mean, that's the office that controls this. And we do have results here, 22% votes in here. Pat Hines, okay, the challenger is up 56 to 44% over the incumbent Fritz Kagi.
22% in so far?
22% in so far. So that's a big chunk of votes, and that's a pretty sizable lead Mr. Hines is opening up.
And Paris, because I know we talk about property taxes, I think that Brendan Reilly lost an opportunity to really push that harder, as well as with the tax sale. So you know that Cook County is the only one the only county in the country that is still allowing these tax sales to go forward and take people's surplus of their homes. The Supreme Court ruled against this 3 years ago, and the U.S. Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional to sell people's home for a small amount and take their surplus. Cook County still take their equity, and so the surplus equity. So we have not done anything in regards to that in Cook County, and Toni Preckwinkle is the helm of that.
Yes, the tax. I've done a lot of stories on this tax sale for those watching. What the heck is that? That is such a fascinating process. This is when folks are delinquent on their property taxes for, what is it, over a year, for a certain amount of time. Then they all of a sudden start to have to pay interest. They go to the tax sale. Someone buys their delinquency, buys that debt, and then the folks owe giant interest rates to the person that bought that debt on their delinquent tax.
And they get to take their house. And they lose their home. And somebody might have paid $12,000 or $15,000. The home might have been worth $150,000. And they get to take their home for $15,000. The U.S. Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. And we're the only county in the country that has not done anything about it. Nobody's talking about it.
The only state. We have to really get going on that. I really think that perhaps the results tonight in the assessor's race, we'll see how it ends up. But that should be a message to all the incumbent legislators that property taxes aren't going away. We need relief.
Right.
We need relief.
This was the highest median rise in property taxes in 30 years. And whoever is truly responsible, voters clearly perhaps taking out the incumbent assessor, taking out the blame on that, on the incumbent assessor. I think we want to go to the 9th Congressional District. We got some results coming in there. Brett, are you looking at this race? I think a lot of precincts are in here, and it looks like Daniel Biss is in the lead.
I was just about to tweet this. It looks like he's putting a considerable amount of distance between he and the field, with 54% of the vote now in. It's Daniel Biss in the lead with about 16,000 votes and change. Second place right now, Laura Fine with about 12,000 and change, and Kat Abu-Ghazali with a little over 11,000 votes right here. So it gives you a little insight into who is voting right now, who is taking the lead right now. You've got the Evanston mayor, Daniel Biss, now in the lead.
All right, Daniel Biss. When we talk about APAC in this race, Biss was kind of the neutral category because Laura Fine was the recipient, her PACs were the recipient of the APAC money. Kat Abu-Ghazali obviously was against Israel, pro-Palestine, and APAC wanted to prevent her. So maybe a neutral result here. When we decide, how influential is the APAC PAC or all these other super PACs, maybe we don't get a clear answer in this one. But Joni is at the Biss campaign headquarters, I believe, in Evanston. Joni, are they feeling confident these results are going to hold?
Oh, well, they were looking at those early poll numbers, and this is kind of reflective of that, except for Laura Fine coming in second place, as you reported. And our numbers, Daniel Biss was up to as much as 34%, now at 31%. They do feel confident here that these numbers are going to hold because Daniel Biss, they say, appeals to all kinds of Democrats. Though he and Kat Abu-Ghazali are considered progressives and they're going after the progressive vote, they say that he is the candidate for all of the 9th District. Now, the campaign workers spent the whole day throughout the 9th District, which runs a long distance all the way up to Lake and McHenry County. Now they are all gathered right here in Evanston, the home territory for Mayor Daniel Biss. We're told that he is here on the premises, but in a private room right now, watching those returns come in, and probably won't address this crowd until it's a little more sure with the numbers coming in. Now, he has always been considered the front runner, but Kat Abu-Ghazali is wildly popular digitally. This was a test of whether that would transfer into votes. Daniel Biss ran a pretty traditional campaign, and today they stuck to the old-fashioned ways of knocking on doors, calling up people, asking people to go and vote. Though they said that the turnout for Election Day was pretty light, especially in the counties, they were hoping that the early voting numbers would turn out, and it seems like they have. Also, State Senator Laura Fine, she had the Chicago Tribune endorsement. She's doing better than what we were reporting earlier about her numbers falling off, but it seems like Mayor Daniel Biss could be Congressman Biss or the Democratic choice for the ticket come November, but they're still waiting, and until he's down here, I think that'll be the sign of just how sure they are. Paris, Brett.
So if these results hold, might have to be a special election to replace him as mayor of Evanston, Joni. Well, thank you for that report. We'll check in with you in a little bit when Biss arrives there. You know, this is so interesting. Let's take a look at Kat Abu-Ghazaleh's campaign headquarters. This district is so interesting. I think the political activism in this district goes back so far, and the notion that someone who's a digital warrior, someone who's you know, very popular online, could gain traction over someone who's, as you said, Governor, going to the Jan Schakowsky breakfast, doing the traditional kind of door knocking. It's still score one here for the old school kind of politics of retail, knocking on doors, making relationships with some of the party leaders.
Well, he was elected, too. He was elected state representative, then he got elected state senator, and then he got elected mayor. I think that shows that sometimes voters understand where the candidate is on his issues, and they voted for him on all those races. So congratulations to him if he's going to win for Congress tonight. He worked hard for it.
And, you know, Monica, you were correcting me that APAC wasn't neutral here with Biss. They actually did spend against him and in favor of Fine.
In February alone, $1.3 million in APAC-linked attack ads. They spent, you know, $2.8 million in APAC-linked PACs for Laura Fine, and $165,000 in anti-cat ads.
And it's interesting. We talk about will this be a bellwether of the Iran issue, the Israel issue? Is Israel losing favor in the Democratic Party? But it seems like it's going to be mixed results because Biss, okay, not the APAC candidate, but Brett, in the 8th Congressional District, Melissa Bean has been the recipient through PACs of APAC and some other big special interests, and it looks like she's going to carry that one and go back to Congress.
Yeah, we were talking about election redemption and comebacks here. Melissa Bean is looking more likely that she's going to be returning, at least representing the Democratic Party here, since likely whoever wins this district will go to Congress next year. But with 45% of the votes in, it is Melissa Bean that is taking that spot in the Illinois 8th Congressional District, but going back to that 9th District, now it's 74% of the vote in with Daniel Biss, so he's just putting more and more distance. He's got about a 6,000 vote lead over the next person. In this case, it's Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. But yeah, Melissa Bean in the 8th District, putting some distance in now with 45% of the votes in. Still a long night ahead, but it looks like one district, or at least one race here, is looking like we're getting a little bit of a reality coming in here.
All right, let's talk about some of the Republican races. There are some Republican races. Looking at these numbers, far lower turnout on the Republican side here in Illinois, which you know, kind of goes with you know, the last several years or decades of this being a blue-leaning state, especially in these big elections. But I'm looking at results here of Don Tracy in the GOP Senate primary. Only 12% counted. He's up 37.8% to 21%. Pat Quinn, assuming Don Tracy, who was the statewide party leader, if he wins, does he have any shot in a general against the Democratic nominee?
I hope not. You know, I don't think, matter of fact, he came out against the millionaire amendment for property tax relief. So I think he is really not attuned to where the voters are who are voting their pocketbooks. There was a saying a long time ago that the best way to win elections is economic issues. The most sensitive nerve in the body is the pocketbook nerve. So I don't think he's going to do well if he has an approach that favors the millionaires over people who have to pay property taxes.
You know, And Jamal, I'll ask that question to you too, because, you know, as I said, you've been pretty critical of the Democratic Party and not, you know, maybe coming through on the promises of affordability, obviously a big issue, and other issues in the African American community. So would you think a GOP senator could make some traction, given the fact that, you know, midterms are tough for the party in power now?
Well, let me say I'm critical of the Democratic Party because that's all we have in this state. Okay, I don't think a Republican can win the seat. No, but and we have dealt with Democrats all of our lives. I mean, we may have had a governor that was Republican during my life.
Bruce
maybe
Rauner,
one.
it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't long ago, but that's the only.
We had 26 years of Republican governors.
Okay,
You know, there was
maybe that was
Thompson,
before I was born. You know, I'm talking about my life.
Edgar and Ryan. Well, I had to live under that, and
You
I
had
was
to.
glad we finally broke it. Yeah,
And
it was
so-
a long time between drinks.
Yeah, well.
Well, who broke that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I was lieutenant governor. I ran
You were lieutenant
independently.
governor, right.
And
When
ultimately
I was
showed up.
young, I was campaigning with this guy when I was young. So when I was a young guy, so I don't know much about Republicans running things here, but I don't think that they have a shot in this democratically leaned state. But I just hope that our politicians start to do the work and more work in the communities to organize the people. Look at the turnout. I mean, the turnout is abysmal every election, even in the mayor's race as well. We got to do more work to connect with people on all cycle, right? When we are in the middle, you know, of the 4 years, not just when it's campaign time, because people are tired of just hearing about these people all of a sudden and getting tons of mailers during campaign time, but we've never heard of these people. You've never came to my community. You've never came and talked to me. And people want to be involved in a process, or they won't be involved in the process, and that's why you have these abysmal numbers.
Well, grassroots, that's what you need. You know,
Yes.
if you have referendums on the ballot, a lot of times that turns people out. They're more interested in voting on an issue than a candidate who all they do is throw mud at each other. So
And millionaires tax referendum is one you're working on right now.
I'm glad you remembered that.
Did you have a Bears one too that they have to stay in Illinois?
That is an online petition.
It's an online
BearDownForIllinois.com. And go on that line and you can vote in favor of Illinois for the Bears to stay here. We don't want the Hammond Hoosiers. We want the Chicago Bears. And we have on that website, led by George Wendt, the late, great George Wendt, him leading the singing of Bear Down Chicago Bears. So that's our team.
The pride and joy of
Illinois.
Yes,
not,
the pride and joy of Illinois.
Northwest Indiana. No way.
Yeah, and we're going to, you know, as soon as this primary is over, we're going to turn our attention to the Bears because it seems like there might be some movement on that later this week or next week. Stay tuned for that. I do want to get to the Republican GOP, the GOP primary for governor. I'm looking at 14% of precincts counted. Ted Dabrowski up 41.5%. Over Darren Bailey, 38%. Again, this is just preliminary numbers, but you know, Bailey was seen as the favorite. He didn't come to our debate. He kind of took a Rose Garden strategy, kind of assuming he was going to win this thing. Yeah. But there was some pushback in conservative circles that, you know, they don't believe Bailey is a viable candidate against Governor Pritzker. Now, Dabrowski, Jamal, is Dabrowski someone who is more viable?
I think Ted Dabrowski, if he wins, J.B. Pritzker will finally have his first race. I think J.B., I'm sure, as he usually puts some money behind Darren Bailey each round. Yes. Because he wants Darren Bailey each time because he can easily beat him. Ted Dabrowski is not as Southern as Darren Bailey, and he is, you know, more common sense.
He's a North Shore guy.
And he's a North Shore guy, so he can connect with folks in JB's lane a little bit better than Darren Bailey. So I'm very interested to see what happens. I think this will be the first time that JB has an opponent that he has to spend some money on, or if it's Darren Bailey, you know, he'll slide just right back into the governor's office.
Well, I mean, if this holds, that could be the first real upset of the night. Dabrowski, again, the guy, I've known him for years. Many of you here have known him for years. He ran Wire Points. He was with the Policy Institute, had more of a libertarian kind of background. His big issue was the pensions in Illinois. And I know that was your issue too, Governor. I mean, you famously said you're put on this earth to solve the pension issue.
Yeah, we did pass one bill.
You passed it.
Yeah, and it did reduce the pension liability for our state.
Well, you passed another one that the state Supreme Court knocked down.
Right, you can't win them all. Yeah,
it would have reduced the liability even more.
Yeah, but I'm a governor who actually got some pension reform passed, and you know, it's a tough issue, very hard issue, and it seems to me that this election is a long way to go. You know, Bailey's from Southern Illinois, and they tend to come in later, the votes. So we'll see what happens as the night goes on.
Monica, what do you think? Is Dabrowski, is he going to pull this one out, or is this too early to tell?
He's got a good Polish Chicago area name, so maybe that'll help, because Bailey, he did not want to campaign in Chicago. He was kind of writing it off. No more moving to the Hancock this time, and maybe that's going to.
I would think that he was going to move here perhaps in the general election. It seemed like he was running a downstate campaign now to win the primary. He already moderated his feelings about Chicago, called it a hellhole before this time. He said, I was wrong.
Just a heck hole.
A heck hole? No, it's okay. It's pretty okay. Wow. We're going to take a break. We got some more results just flying in here, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We got results coming in fast and furious here. Let's go to the 2nd Congressional District, the South Side, South Suburbs, and going all the way down to Danville. This is another giant district. And Jesse Jackson Jr. wanted to ride right back into Congress after his first stint and then being federally convicted. But look at these results here. 61% of the votes counted. Donna Miller, the Cook County Commissioner, she is up 40.9 to 29.3. This might be an upset. It seemed like Jackson had the lead in the polls. Jackson did not want to talk to us when we previewed this race. Miller did. Robert Peters did. He's in 3rd place here. And Yamika Brown is right behind him with 10.8%. So Peters looking to be falling back a 2-person race, but Donna Miller a commanding lead. Jamal Green, does it look like voters decided they had enough of Jesse Jackson in Congress?
Yeah, I mean, this was his, redemption run. But when you look at it, voters, they may feel differently about wanting to put him back in Congress after what happened last round. I was excited about the young people running in this race. Willie Preston ran an amazing campaign. Yamika Brown ran an amazing campaign. I think there are going to be some great politicians going forward. Donna Miller just got a lot of APAC money, okay? And so she got a big
$4
boost.
million.
She got like $4 million. She got a big boost here. And I saw a lot of billboards, a lot of pink billboards all over the highway as well. So, but this tells the story right here of, do voters in this district feel like Junior deserves another chance? And we see what they're saying now.
Well, Monica, so we keep talking about the big interest, AI, crypto, and APAC, and what is this going to say about the Democratic Party? But it seems like it's going to be a mixed result for APAC, which tells me, despite all these special interests, it still comes down to the specific district and the local issues here. There are no monoliths at all.
Absolutely. You know, it looks like just in February alone, Donna Miller got $2.4 million from APAC-linked groups. But then Jesse Jackson Jr. got 1.1 from
crypto.
So APAC-linked groups for Donna Miller and AI groups, and then of course the Bobby Rush voice that came in through AI in his commercial was a little controversial. But yeah, it's sort of like big interest against big interest. Which one will win? You know, when will the small donations from the people actually be the thing that makes the difference?
Yeah.
Not in this race. But you're right. It could be that the APAC-linked candidates, 2 of them win tonight and 2 of them lose tonight.
And Donna Miller, Cook County Commissioner, she's talked about wanting to build a 3rd airport in Peatone, which is something that we've been talking about in the state for as long as I've been alive. It was Jesse Jackson Jr.'s issue. But Governor Quinn, does this say that voters in the 2nd Congressional District don't really care about all that talk about outside money? This is about who they think is going to represent them.
I've known Donna a long time. I knew Robin Kelly, obviously, who's currently.
Is there anyone you don't know in this,
well,
field?
When you've been in politics a while, you get to meet everybody. But keep in mind, Donna's been elected to the Cook County Board for quite some time. And I was with her when she first announced her campaign for county board. And she's very focused on local issues, as you point out, especially on health. I think, if she wins, she'll be a good candidate and a champion of healthcare issues. Her husband's a dentist. He worked for me when I was governor. And Donna is very personable. And if it turns out the voters elected her, I know she'll do a good job. And especially, we got to fight hard to get a 3rd airport down there. When I was governor, we bought the land, and now we need to make it happen.
That's right. The state bought the land there. Donna Miller also, we featured her. She's been big on women's issues and domestic violence and things like that. Someone that's certainly been around public office in Cook County in the 2nd District. So we'll watch though, but that's 67% of the votes counted now. Brett Bagansky, maybe we go back to you here. What else is coming in right now? How about that Senate primary? It seems like Stratton has vaulted into the lead now.
Well, before we get to that Senate one, we were going to talk about Illinois District 7 for the GOP primary. Just within the last 4 minutes, the AP called the race for Chad Coppy. He is going to be running for District 7 on the GOP side. So he already ran against Patricia easily there. So big, overwhelming victory right there. So now we wait and see if it's going to be potentially LaShawn LaFord, who is leading right now with 62% of the vote against Chad Coppy. But you wanted to go back to that U.S. Senate race, and the votes keep coming in. And it was, in the beginning, it was Juliana Stratton, and then it was Raja Krishnamoorthi. And it looks like right now, with 48% of the vote in, it is Juliana Stratton that has a lead over Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi here. But it's still, when you look at the votes here, there's just a few going in there. But it looks, from the vote totals right here from the AP, there's about 33,000 votes and change between Juliana Stratton and Raja Krishnamoorthi. Robin Kelly coming in at 3rd there. But you have to wonder if money played a role in this race, what kind of turnout that was there. But it is still too early to call in this race because in the beginning it's been very back and forth.
All right. So 30,000 votes here, half the votes counted, 38.5 to 33.1. Still too early to call, but certainly Stratton vaulting into the lead. Some of that, the late-breaking Pritzker money and those ads making a difference in this one. And then you mentioned, I want to go back to the 7th, and you mentioned LaShawn Ford. Brett, can you go back and pull up the 7th? So Ford he's maintaining his lead here over Melissa Conyers-Ervin and Anthony Driver and others?
He sure has. It seems like in the beginning he was leading right when we started getting some of these early returns in, but we're just looking at the numbers right here with 62% of the votes coming in from the Associated Press. It's LaShawn Ford out in front with about 16,873 votes. That's about nearly 24% of the vote. Melissa Conyers-Ervin coming in at 2nd, and then Anthony Driver coming in at 3rd. And this is the same guy from earlier today where he almost couldn't vote in his own.
All right, did you figure out what happened there?
Well, we're going to have an interview coming up from the Chicago Board of Elections to find out what exactly happened, because he was saying that he waited almost an hour just to be able to vote. They offered him a provisional ballot. He said, no, I want an actual ballot here. But they had him originally saying that he voted. He's saying, no, that didn't happen here. So if it was happening to an Illinois state rep, just imagine what it's happening to the average person out there. So that'll be a big question that we want answered here, as well as some other potential voting snafus from earlier today.
All right. Well, now, Brett, thanks very much. We're coming up on 8 o'clock, so an hour since the polls have closed, and these results are coming in fast. Monica, is this a surprise here in the 7th, or pretty much expected? Because, again, we've talked about all these special interests. Melissa Conyers-Ervin not only had APAC, she had another local special interest, the Chicago Teachers Union, which seemed to quietly have maybe withdrawn their support, or at least endorsement, in recent days, because they and APAC have not seen eye to eye.
No, it was strange bedfellows in terms of those supporters. I mean, Ford, again, got the Davis nod the day Davis was retiring or announcing his departure. And, he's been up in the polls. He's a strong candidate, and, it looks like he's going to win.
And he's another guy that's been around the legislative process for many, many, many years.
He's been a legislator. That helps a lot. He has a great organizer. Tiama Romero is his campaign manager, and she has been campaign manager for Danny Davis over many years. And Danny Davis is really a champion of everyday people, healthcare issues in particular. And when he spoke in favor of LaShawn, I think that was a tremendous endorsement.
Yeah, his name holds weight. I think LaShawn also, he's been fighting a long time for many issues. I mean, for fathers, single fathers. He also, in the mayor's race, I remember when I was in the mayor's race with him, he was the one to move forward the bill to recall Chicago mayor, because we don't have a measure.
That's right, he ran for mayor.
Yeah, and we don't have a measure to recall it. So recall the mayor of Chicago, and he moved forward that bill. So LaShawn, I mean, an amazing guy. Who I've also known for many years, and I think he will be a champion for that district. And I'm just happy to see that, he is continuing on fighting for the people. And I think he's going to have some amazing policies for the communities.
One of them is he's sponsoring the Millionaire Amendment for property tax relief in the state legislature. He's the leader. Winning today on the west side, south side of Chicago, I think really sends a message. We got to get that amendment on the ballot.
And Paris, let's go back to that CTU thing here.
All right, I know you want to talk about this, J-Mo.
We got to go.
Let's be clear. You've been in local politics and activism for a while. You ran for mayor twice. You and Stacey Davis Gates, the CTU president, don't always see eye to eye.
I don't know if we ever see eye to eye. But, I mean, I think this was crazy for her, right? She jumped into the race because she has beef with SEIU. A local union who helped her make a mayor, who put in more resources.
Anthony Driver is
the member of SEIU.
Doesn't look like he's going to win tonight.
Yeah, and SEIU helped her, and they actually put more resources in to help Brandon Johnson become mayor and help her have her friend become mayor. And so this bad blood that they have for her to jump in these races to attack them, attack their candidates, is just crazy when she should be trying to unify labor, especially with a citywide race coming up. I think that it was crazy that not only that she jumped in the race to support Melissa, but she was on the side of APAC. Many people were not saying it. I was on the phone.
You were on the phone.
I was on the phone calling folks all day saying, wow, the Chicago Teachers Union, who's running candidates against APAC, is now supporting a candidate that is backed by APAC. And now all of a sudden, in the last day, we see that they pulled an endorsement, but they never really said anything or went public to say it.
All right, but I want to get back to some of the local issues, because what's happened in this district over the years, there have been lots of flooding. We see problems in Cicero, in Berwyn, on the west side of Chicago. Danny Davis, out there on the phone with FEMA. I mean, this congressperson is going to have to be active, to get resources here.
It's a very big district. It starts in the Loop, it goes through the west side, and then it's Oak Park and Hillside as well. So pretty diverse communities there.
Then it goes to the south side, too.
Go to the south side to Inglewood.
Yeah.
And it's got some of downtown, is it?
It has some of downtown as well. So it's a very diverse district. What I do like to see is that we always push our elder politicians for who they groom. LaShawn has been under Danny Davis for a long time, and I am happy to see him pass the torch to someone who has been in government and who's been a part of the community.
And clearly voters so far going that route right now. All right, I think we got to take a break. We're in the 8 o'clock hour here, and we're going to have more results for you right on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. So turnout in the city of Chicago has been a story all day. We expected it might be higher than normal. Those early vote totals were much higher than in previous midterm primaries, but election day itself, low turnout unless there was that after-work rush, which sometimes does materialize. So let's go back to Brett Bugansky, who's going to give us more on that. Brett.
All right, so there's one guy who could fill us in on exactly what the voter turnout was. We've got Max Bever here from the Chicago Board of Elections. Max, can you hear me? Can you answer that question, even though the votes are still coming in, what voter turnout was like today?
Yes, indeed. We saw quite a surge of voters from 3 p.m. on. We started this morning pretty soft. We came in like a lion. I was worried that we'd exit like a lamb. We came in with those record-breaking early voting plus vote-by-mail ballot totals for pre-election. It was looking more like 2018's numbers. We started off a bit soft, but voters kept showing up through Election Day. So as of right now, and we still have a few people in line, and these results will continually be updated, but we have nearly 400,000 ballots cast in the city of Chicago for nearly 26% of citywide turnout. So that's already beat our 2022 primary and our 2014 primary with all the vote-by-mail ballots that they already counted. So ultimately, we're heading out of this election day with still tens of thousands of vote-by-mail ballots to count. Our precincts are updating in real time. So it ended up being a pretty healthy turnout, even if we did not hit 2018's numbers.
Well, you mentioned 2018 numbers, and I was looking at the voter turnout from the city of Chicago around that time. We were looking at about 30% of the eligible voters who went out and voted that day. Are we going to hit that 30% number, or is it going to fall somewhere between what we saw in 2012, 2016, where it was sitting right around, or actually it would be 2010, 2012, it would be right around that 20% number?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to fall in between 2018 and 2022. 2022 was just over 22% of the city turned out for that vote. In 2018, over 32% of the city turned out for that vote. So somewhere in between, but I think we're going to be on the higher end, a little bit closer to 2018. The big question is how many of the vote-by-mail ballots are going to come back with that proper postmark, and how many are ultimately going to be counted out of the ballots that were sent out. So we know some of those races are close tonight. There's a 2-week counting period after election day in the state of Illinois. This is when all ballots that we received on Monday, Election Day, and through the next 2 weeks from our military and overseas voters are ultimately processed and counted. So that turnout number is going to continue to go up over the next 2 weeks as we get close to the proclamation.
We'll see, Max, if that's going to play a role in tipping the scale one way or the other. But every single election, there's always one problem or sometimes a few, depending on what's going on that election year, where there's problems at the poll. State Rep LaShawn Ford talked about how he at first wasn't able to vote at his own precinct, saying that he was denied a ballot, saying that they had him on record voting already. He waited almost an hour. They were telling him to vote provisional. He said no, and then there was something worked out there. So what happened, and how did this get resolved?
Unfortunately, that was an election judge issue on site. You know, they are working the e-poll book. That was what it was initially. Somebody pressed the wrong button. Thankfully, the candidate did stay at his polling place, did not cast a provisional ballot. Our legal team was in contact with the site. The issue was resolved, and the candidate was able to vote a regular ballot. We apologize for the inconvenience, but ultimately, the issue was resolved in about 45 minutes. Our election judges, you know, it's a long day. They're not paid very well. We do train them the best that they can, but we do appreciate the patience that people have when these type of issues crop up. Otherwise, it was a very smooth and safe election day. That was a little bit to the turnout. There wasn't that many people in line. That's usually when people get a little bit upset at each other. We get those electioneering complaints, but no public safety issues or other major incidents to report for Election Day on March 17th in Chicago.
So you said he pushed a button. So they pushed a button saying that he voted already, or how does that work? Because for some people who are wondering, like, well, if I come in and they say that I voted, they push my button. I guess kind of explain that for the average person out there that's not familiar with that.
Sure thing. So when a voter checks into the e-poll book, they're checking in. Ultimately, what happened is that they were just reading the wrong part where the voter checked in. These issues are generally taken care of with Election Central, a polling place investigator on site, or the election coordinator. All these people were involved as part of that process. It was a misunderstanding more than it was a tech issue with the election judge, but that's what I understand at this moment. We are looking into it a bit further with an investigation, but ultimately it was resolved within about 45 minutes.
Yeah, especially because when you usually vote, most of the time, you know, you might be showing ID, you might have to sign your name right there. I was wondering and this is just one case because he's an elected official and he's running for a higher office here. How often something like this happens here?
You know, it is something that can crop up on Election Day. It is taken care of by Election Central. Ultimately, you know, we do try to work with our election judges to make sure that they're understanding how to work the poll book and ultimately these type of issues. We are looking into this one a bit more to report more in the future.
Yeah, so what is the next step on this? And you said that even though it got resolved within 45 minutes, there's going to be an investigation here. What exactly is going to happen in that investigation, and what kind of timetable are we looking at?
Ultimately, statements are taken from election judges on site, additional follow-up for anybody who was present in the polling place. The Chicago Board of Elections has already been in touch with Mr. Ford, so the updates will continue through the next week.
Yeah, because we were talking here during our elections show for someone like LaShawn Ford, who is leading his race right now in the 7th district, and you know, for a while he was worried that he wasn't going to be able to vote here. I was wondering if you guys found out any other circumstances like that, where there may be other elected officials who had gone through something like this, and what that might have been a credit to, or if it's something like a computer error or human error.
Not from what I can see from our Election Central help desk. Our most common complaint through the day was electioneering. This is usually when people are within that 100-foot polling place, you know, with the cones. Ultimately, that's kind of the most common things that we see on Election Day. But we are glad that this was resolved with the candidate, and we will look into it further.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to Election Day, and voter turnout is one of the things that is always going to drive numbers here. And looking at the weather, was weather one of those issues where it could have potentially sort of changed voter turnout, or if there was any concern of people standing in line, depending on the precinct throughout the Chicagoland area there?
Given the healthy turnout that we saw continue throughout the day, it was very possible that the morning was a bit chilly for people, or they were planning on showing up later in the day during their lunch break or after work. But ultimately, even with the bad weather that we saw on Monday, which is our heaviest early voting day generally heading into Election Day, we had over 20,000 people show up to early vote on Monday, even through that weather. And we had, over 200,000 people show up to vote on Election Day. So no matter what, Chicagoans are sturdy, and they do show up no matter what the weather is outside.
So when we start to see some of these numbers come in, Max, here, we're always wondering, all right, what precinct is that? Are they coming from Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, Chicagoland area? Since you're in the Chicago office right here, what's the process like of reporting all the different ballots to the state?
Sure thing. So if people are curious, they can go to chicagoelections.gov. Election results are being posted throughout the night. All of our precincts are reporting right now. Ones that have voters or had a line, they should be wrapping up shortly. By about 1 a.m., that's generally when we see about 98% of our precincts reporting. That's when we post the ward by precinct results. You can check those out at chicagoelections.gov and watch the rest of the results be updated over the next 2 weeks. Now, vote by mail ballots will continue to be counted over the next 2 weeks through March 31st. So ultimately, just keep checking the website. The turnout will continue to improve as we get through this period.
Max Bever, Chicago Board of Elections, thank you so much for being here and answering our questions today.
Thank you.
All right, Paris, that's going to be another interesting thing about how they're looking at counting some of those ballots till the end of the month, and just looking at some of the votes between some of these close races here, you have to wonder if someone doesn't want to concede, if they're going to end up challenging those numbers, say no, let's wait for some of these overseas ballots, some of these absentee ballots to be voted in.
Yeah, and certainly if the race is too close to call, those mail-in ballots make a difference in per state law. If they are postmarked by today, then they can come in over the next couple of weeks, as you just said, and they'll be counted. But it does look like, and thank you for that, Brett, it looks like these results look pretty definitive so far with a lot of these precincts voting. Very quickly, I want to talk about a race we haven't talked about. That's Illinois Comptroller. Susana Mendoza is stepping down. And by the way, let's reintroduce our panel here. We've got Monica Eng from Axios. We've got former Governor Pat Quinn, and we got community activist and two-time candidate for Chicago Mayor J. Mal Green. I want to talk about this comptroller race. This is to replace Susana Mendoza for the state's top bills payer here, which is no small job, as you know, Governor. Margaret Croak is up 37%. Karina Villa, 33%, Holly Kim, 22%. And this is notable because it looks like this is turning out to be a good night for Governor Pritzker right now.
Yeah, it's also, Margaret Croak got endorsed by a very small margin by the Cook County Democratic Party. So they marked her on all their ballots. And that may be the reason why she's ahead. She's not ahead by a whole lot, but Karina Villa ran a good campaign and still up in the air. And we'll see who wins in the end.
I think Holly Kim, ran a great campaign as well. I love her passion. Susana Mendoza actually endorsed her as her successor. It looks like she's lagging behind here. But like you said, this is looks like it may be a good night for the governor, who this is his machine right now in this state. And
it's funny, J-Mo, because Robin Kelly was Durbin's choice to lead the Illinois Democratic Party. Pritzker wanted his person in there, and they really battled. They bucked horns for a while. Pritzker eventually got control of the Democratic Party, and you just said he's being kingmaker, and that's continuing tonight because it does look like in that Senate race right now, Monica, Juliana Stratton is continuing to keep up her lead over Raja Krishnamoorthi, and I think we're going to go out to Tia Ewing right now. Tia, are you available? Are you out there at the Stratton campaign right now, and are you hearing folks starting to think that they're going to pull this one out?
Yeah, a lot of people are starting, Paris, to think that they're going to pull this out. Every time the numbers show up right behind us on this big TV, you hear a rumbling of applause. And when you look at where we are in terms of the votes right now, 54% of the vote has been counted. This is according to AP, who's tracking the numbers. Juliana Stratton with over 266,000 votes, and Raja Krishnamoorthi lagging behind with 222,000, followed by Robin Kelly with 138,000. Right now it's still too early to tell, and really Tony, I had a conversation with 43rd Alderman Timmy Knutson about this. I said, hey, you're in the building. What are you feeling right now? And he said, nervous. That was the key word that he pointed to. Nervous was the word that he chose because he said that it feels really close. Now, in terms of the sentiment in the room, the sentiment is that Juliana is going to pull this out. And I'm told that she is here watching these numbers roll in right now. But again, only 57% of the vote counted right now. Those numbers did update, and still she is in the lead by at least 41,000 votes right now. So we will have to watch and see how this plays out, Pierce. To be honest with you, I thought it would be a little bit closer. But again, it is still early, so we don't know how this is going to shake out. But of course, we will be watching. She's in the building, and so are some other city officials starting to pour into the building right now from the city of Chicago. You can hear the sound, right? You can hear the music. You can see the crowd behind me. A lot of people very optimistic that Juliana Stratton will pull out and become, the next person to run to be Illinois' next U.S. Senator. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. But right now, optimism is the word that I would use. I would use nervously optimistic, I think would be a great term to use for the sentiment in this room right now, Pierce.
All right, Tia, so some nervous optimism there. Nervous optimism, a good way to put any candidate on Election Day. Nervous optimism. That's a great phrase. I'm going to remember that. Thanks, Tia.
Yeah.
We'll check back in with you for a minute. But now let's go to Raja Krishnamoorthi's campaign and Leslie Moreno, who is tracking the results there. Leslie, are they getting worried now that Stratton has kept up a pretty consistent lead as these results have come in?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the energy at the beginning was confident, electric. I can tell you there is a sense of anxiousness now. We've all been refreshing that board here. I've been seeing people here refresh that page as well. And as you mentioned, Juliana Stratton taking the lead by about 50,000, give or take. So, yeah, but they do say, that it's an early night. It's a long night. It is still very early. So we may see those numbers change towards the end. We know this is going to be a very close race. I do want to talk a little bit about the race itself. We know a lot of money has been put into this race. We know Fair Shake has donated a lot to Congressman Krishnamoorthi, as well as Governor J.B. Pritzker has put a lot of his money into his rival Juliana Stratton. Again, I think you mentioned this earlier in one of the shows, tens of millions of dollars into this Senate race. So a lot going into this race, not just in terms of money, but culturally and historically as well. We've been talking about this all night. But if he is elected for the Senate, this would make him the first Indian American out of Illinois. So a big historic moment for him, and we heard him talk about that earlier this evening at Manny's Deli. He mentioned, how important that would be for him, for his people. And if I remember correctly, he said it would be like having a seat at the table. So again, yeah, a lot of anxiousness, I would say here. We're feeling confident at first, but now talking to people, the room is filling up here. Everyone keeps refreshing it, and I keep seeing people here refreshing their phone to check those numbers. But again, very early night, so could change.
All right, Leslie, thanks very much. We've just got so many results coming in here. We're just monitoring all these, and we'll check in with you again. But we do have a race that's been called by the AP. One race called by the AP right now. That is the 2nd Congressional District Democratic primary. Donna Miller, the AP calls as the winner. She's up right now 41% to 29% with a little over half of the precincts reporting. Jamal Green, is this an upset here? Did you expect Jesse Jackson Jr. would ride that name, that experience back to Washington?
Yeah, I mean, especially with Reverend Jackson just passing away. Truly, I did think that he was going to ride this all the way to Congress. I wasn't a fan of that. So, I would say I'm probably happy with the result. I just think it's time for some new blood. Jesse Jr. had his chance. When he was in Congress, he did some great things. He made his decisions, and it laid him where it is. And I think that Donna Miller, who's been a commissioner, a great commissioner for many years, and been in tune with the communities, I want to see what she's going to do in Congress. So I think that I'm actually happy with today's results.
And if these results hold back to the Senate race, Governor Quinn, Raja Krishnamoorthi will be out of office because he's not running for his House seat, obviously, to run for Senate. If he doesn't win this race, back into the private sector, what do you make of that?
Well, I've been there. One day a peacock, the next day a feather duster. And no, he'll find something to do. I'm sure he will. You know, he has a lot of, he's a very dynamic guy. And if you don't win an election, well, life goes on. You'll find some other thing to do for the public.
And Monica, I just want to go back to Governor Pritzker. All the money that he spent, it seems to me, of all the special interest talk we talk about, perhaps the special interest with the most complete result right now is Governor Pritzker.
It seems like Governor Pritzker and his family, who have very strongly supported Juliana Stratton. You know, we were asking, you know, folks, there's an off the record that's sort of on the record with the governor, and we said, you know, if you love Juliana Stratton so much as lieutenant governor, why are you supporting her to run for Senate? And he said she's a really smart woman, and you know, maybe she hasn't been able to do everything she's wanted to do as lieutenant governor, and I want to give her that chance.
Well, as you know, Governor Quinn, lieutenant governor, sometimes you feel like the forgotten person. I mean, sometimes you have a big portfolio, sometimes not so much because it's not as defined.
I really like being lieutenant governor. I was lieutenant governor for 6 years.
You had a lot of press conferences on Sundays.
I believe in that, but you know, it was during 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. I went to both of them when I was governor and lieutenant governor. And, you know, there's important things you can do. You can be an ombudsman, which means in Swedish, the people's person. And I think anybody who's a lieutenant governor should always see it that way. You have to advocate for folks who sometimes fall between the cracks, who don't have a champion. You as lieutenant governor can do that, and it's a valuable office.
All right, let's go to the 9th Congressional District, because this race has been fairly close all night. 3 people, front runners, and we mentioned all the special interests involved here, the North Side and Evanston and all the way up into Lake County. Daniel Biss holding firm in his lead, about 80% of the precincts reporting. Abu Ghazaleh now 5 percentage points behind Laura Fine, 20 percentage points behind us. So this is interesting. We mentioned APAC, very invested in this, against Biss, for Fine, a large Jewish population in this race. And by the way, the Jewish community, Jewish American community, has never been a monolith on this. They're very split in terms of how they feel about Israel the last couple of years, how they feel about Netanyahu, how they feel about Palestine, how they feel about Iran. But this one looks like, especially when you look at the 2 frontrunners and Fine, Israel, the APAC's candidate in 3rd place, that they're not very popular in this district.
Yeah, that's what it would seem. You know, Daniel Biss has made it clear that, you know, he spent, you know, summers in Israel, that he, you know, has talked to people from APAC, and that he is a, you know, proud Jewish American. But it is not a monolith. And I think he was saying that some of the requirements to say that you will not put restriction on military aid to Israel were turning, you know, even many Jewish candidates off.
Right. So that's the big issue. APAC has always lobbied for aid to Israel without restrictions. We know where Kat Aghabazaleh stands on that, and Daniel Biss and Laura Fine. And beyond that, not a whole lot of breathing room between the 3 progressives, 3 folks that want to abolish ICE, all 3 folks that want to take on Trump. Again, I mean, okay, we mentioned Governor Pritzker's special interest, but also Donald Trump in a way that is still, to me, probably the biggest motivator for these voters. Would you say these results show that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, these days you run a campaign and all you got to do is say, I'm going to fight Trump, and you can move your poll numbers. You know, it's unfortunate, but, you know, in the White House, there's a lot of things that are happening that are pissing off voters. So it's working in Illinois, where it's heavy Democrat. But I think the progressive here, there's many progressives in this race, actually, even more than 3. And I heard a lot of them have a lot of similar messaging. And I hope after this, a lot of them can start to work together, to organize together, to see how they can activate their voices. But Daniel Biss, you know, like the governor said, seasoned, you know, several positions. He also ran for governor, you know, against J.B. Pritzker. He got second plus.
He was to the left of Pritzker.
He was to the left of Pritzker.
Don't forget those Bovino ads where they had him, you know, going toe-to-toe with Bovino, protecting Evanston, and really putting together more progressive laws about how the police would respond to these ICE incidents than really CPD had, frankly.
Right, but, you know, maybe that counts for a lot with voters. He was on the ground there. There are those videos confronting Bovino, as you mentioned, And as mayor, you have to deal with, and Evanston's a pretty sizable city, you have to deal with all these day-to-day issues. You have to be an executive. You're not just a legislator, but you are an executive, as you were, Governor.
Well, if you're a governor or a mayor, every day you have to make decisions that have impact on the people who you represent. You know, if you're a legislator, you can have press conferences and make speeches, but governors and mayors have to be accountable for outcomes. And, you know, Dan Biss, I think, showed when he was battling ICE there as representing the people of Evanston that he was going to stand up against ICE, and that's clearly helped him.
And clearly an important issue in that race. Well, on that, now let's go to Joni Lum, who is at the BIS headquarters in Evanston. So, Joni, we mentioned BIS maintaining this 5 percentage point lead. Do they feel confident they're going to hold on to this, or is there some trepidation that some of the votes out there remaining could go for Abba Ghazala?
It's funny when you say confident but trepidation, because early on today they were feeling confident but not too confident. You know how their voice goes up when they say we're feeling good about it. But with these numbers that are coming in, and the young campaign workers are right over here watching the same numbers that we are reporting, the AP numbers, they are feeling really good and really confident at this point, and feeling like everything that they put their faith into with these particular numbers are bearing out. They are saying that we are not going to see the candidate until the AP calls it. They want to be sure, but Daniel Biss is on the premises. He's in a private room watching these returns as well. They're feeling good, and this room is crowded, and it is St. Patrick's Day at a bar in Evanston where Daniel Biss is the mayor. So right now, they feel very good.
Tony, he's the mayor of Evanston. He could choose to keep the bars open late if he wants, if these results keep going, or if he wants to celebrate into the night. All right, so we might have some movement and some, you know, some conclusions in this race pretty soon. But I want to get to the GOP gubernatorial race. So there was some early momentum for Ted Dabrowski. That is all gone now. It looks like maybe some downstate votes were late to report. The 30% of the votes counted. Mr. Bailey has vaulted into the lead.
Well, looks like the governor won't have to spend $100 million to keep his seat. Darren Bailey is who he always will choose as an opponent. I think he is easily beatable. In the Republican Party, they were running Ted Dabrowski because they felt that he had a better chance at forming a campaign against the governor. But hey, this is the governor's night. The governor,
You're right.
Governor Pritzker.
He's 3 for 3
He
here.
is 3 for 3 here. I mean,
3.
I've seen him a few times over the last couple of weeks. And even when I saw him a couple of weeks ago, he said, "Jay, Mom, I'm trying to get skinny like you." I said, "It's working, whatever you're doing."
Walking on the lakefront.
Walking on the lakefront, he says. But
That'll do it.
That's another conversation for another day. But anyway, if he actually doing that. But the point is the governor.
Seems like the camera's always catching.
Seems like the camera's catching there. But he's having a great night. This is good news for the governor.
Yeah, and if he wants to run for another office in 2028, maybe he takes the results of tonight and builds momentum from that, even though he hasn't really been polling even at 1% in some of these early presidential polls in the Democratic primary. But I think we're going to go out to, are we going to go out to the Jackson campaign? Looks like he might come out and concede. This is Bobby Rush.
You should run for your seat. You should run for your seat. And he slid down in his chair, looked at Gina, and I said, "Don't squander your grace. Don't squander your grace." And I knew that he was apprehensive. So I asked the people sitting at the table right next to us, I said, "If Jesse Jackson runs for Congress, will you support him? Will you vote for him?" They said, "Yes." Those on my left hand. On the right, on our right hand, that's the same question. Yes. There was a couple sitting in front of us at the table in front of us. I asked the very same question. Yes, yes. There was a lady who I knew I saw her from the window. She was walking on the outside. I called her in. I asked her, "Gino, if Jesse Jackson Jr. runs for Congress, will you support him?" "Yes, yes, by all means." So that started the journey.
All right, so that's Bobby
I don't
Rush there, the
know.
former congressman who had endorsed Jesse Jackson. And there was a little bit of controversy over an ad here. I don't know if that played any difference here in the closing moments of the campaign, because Bobby Rush has dealt with cancer. It's changed his voice, but there was an ad, allegedly AI, that was supporting Jesse Jackson, where Bobby Rush's old voice appeared. What was going on there?
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I think they didn't think that through. I think a big piece of this is they ran on the name, they ran on his father, but they didn't put enough time and organization and running a great campaign here. And you see what happened. Donna Miller not only, ran and organized throughout the community, but she also got outside money to also help her with ads on TV. And we see that actually helped. So, the people of this district, they made their decision on, do they believe that he should be redeemed to get the seat back, or they wanted a fresh face, and we see what happened.
Yeah, clearly there's a very distinct choice there in that race. Let's take it back to the county, because this has been another interesting one. Toni Preckwinkle has held a sizable lead in this one all night. 80% of the votes counted. 68% to 32% over Brendan Reilly. I'm not, I don't know where the outstanding votes are, but it would seem like this is 200,000 votes here, golf here with 20% left. That's an insurmountable lead if I've ever seen one. And it's at some point that race is going to be called. But then much closer is the Cook County assessor, Pat Hines, maintaining about a 5 percentage point lead on Fritz Kagi here, the incumbent, 52% to 47%, 77% of the votes there. Governor Quinn, Fritz Kagi, was this about people just don't like high property taxes? I know how you feel about this.
Yeah, basically, if I was running for assessor, 2 terms are enough. You have a tough job. It's, got to value properties. I think 8 years in that office is enough for any one person. And it'll be a tough job if Pat Hines wins. He's got to, roll up his sleeves and deal with an unfair property tax system, not only in Cook County, but statewide. And I hope he's a strong voice for real reform, not nibbling around the edges. Yeah. This system, Illinois has the highest property taxes in the country. Yep. And what are we doing about it?
Kagi was supposed to be the reformer after Joe Barrios, who we asked so many times what his formula was for assessing, and we never got that. And the reports, outside reports that came in that basically slammed the property tax system in Cook County is completely unfair. And Kagi was supposed to fix that, which he did make reforms.
We had a referendum on the ballot in 2024 for a millionaire amendment for property tax relief. And Fritz wasn't really involved in that. I know I was involved, and I think I would say to Pat Hines, if he wins, get involved in this cause, because the only way we're going to reform the system is with a voter referendum. It's not going to happen by magic. And right now, we have a system that is not based on ability to pay, and it's really clobbering homeowners as well as small business owners.
I have to say, though, the system, everyone's mad at it, whether you're business, whether you're homeowners, whether you're low income, whether you're high income, and that's because folks go and appeal their taxes to the Board of Review, and the big buildings get these big reductions, and that means everyone else has to pay. Well, so how is Pat Hines going to change that? Because I asked him that, and I didn't really get an answer.
Well, that was what Kagi ran on, that, we're finally going to give relief to the homeowners and not have the fat cats getting the great deals. He, in his defense, he is dealing with this post-COVID situation where lots of downtown real estate and lots of commercial real estate has suddenly lost a lot of its value. And so who's going to be picking up the slack? That's going to be the homeowners. And during this whole Tyler Technologies snafu, where all of the digitizing seems to have gotten screwed up and we have all these delays, it's not a business as usual time for property taxes. But
Paris, I also want to say it's not just the assessments downtown. Is the fact that we need leadership to really drive revenue downtown. Like downtown needs to be revitalized. There's too much vacancy.
There's some new renderings of the Google space. I mean, maybe that can be a catalyst, but someone's going to have to take advantage of Google coming in and making that investment.
100%.
And other buildings that are vacant around there maybe can feed off of that, because you're right. The vacancy is the ongoing problem here. We have another result. It looks like Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin in the 7th District, she is conceding to LaShawn Ford. She says she spoke with Ford. She congratulated him on his victory in the Democratic primary, saying she is going to work closely with him to lift up the West and South sides, address financial literacy gap within the black community. So LaShawn Ford here I don't know if he's been called, but clearly Conyers Irvin, their campaign saying we concede to LaShawn Ford. Again, Danny Davis's successor here. This is who Danny Davis wanted.
Yep.
That's what I voted for.
Brett Pagansky, has AP made a call on this one?
It doesn't look like it right now, so that's very surprising that she was conceding to him already because, as we know, the Associated Press has not called it. There's still 79% of the vote that's in right there, but there's still only about 3,000 votes between them. But clearly, Melissa Conyers Irvin has decided to concede to LaShawn Ford, and she thought that she didn't have a chance moving forward. So we'll wait for that official word from the Associated Press.
There is AP did call one other one, though, right? The GOP gubernatorial contest, they have called that for Darren Bailey. So Dabrowski came out to a really early lead, Brett, and that must have been all the Chicago and Cook County votes coming in quick. You know, they know how to count votes.
The Wilmette vote.
The Wilmette vote. But once those downstate votes came in, Bailey just stormed ahead.
Yeah.
So it looks like, as you said, you know, one of the things to look at here is whether Republicans have a chance. It's a much smaller voting population here in these races. I mean, and there are the results there. So Darren Bailey, the AP calls this for Darren Bailey. Mendrick and 10%. Rick Heidner, who kind of a surprising candidacy there. I've always known him to be a donor to Democrats. Yeah. He donated $25,000 to Brandon Johnson. Yeah. He's the slot, the video gaming guy.
They made him do that because he was the mayor, but he just did it.
Well, he donated to the state Democrats, you know, to get these video game terminals legalized. You're shaking your head. You're not sure about what this candidate is.
Did you didn't get any money, Governor?
No, never took money from them. I don't really know him very well, but he kind of came into it. You know, he didn't really pay much attention to real issues, I didn't think. So anyhow, Bailey's going to be their candidate, and you know, I think he will do his best, but I don't think he's going to win.
No, I don't think he can win. I mean, we'll have the same show as last round, but I think we all know what the results are going to be. This is, again, Pritzker's night. I mean,
not everything.
Yeah. I would say, though, you know, anytime the election's over, if you're governor or senator, you should try to bring everyone together. They should have a breakfast maybe on Friday with the candidates who won and also those who lost. You got to bind up the wounds because some of the rhetoric and campaign ads in this campaign were very negative.
It was negative.
That doesn't help the Democratic Party or Illinois at all.
Governor, I want to see some campaign finance reform. I am really sick, Paris, of
something like $40 million in these special interests.
And even the governor being able to put in this amount of money. I mean, it needs to stop. We need regular candidates being able to run for office who are from these communities, not look at this and say, I can't win because the governor is going to give somebody millions of dollars.
You're really onto a good point because you have 3/5 majority in both houses of Democrats, House and Senate. And the governor obviously has been around 8 years now. He really should have the opportunity to propose a campaign finance reform for the next
like what,
generation.
Though? Because there's always a way to get around it.
I think part of it is all these groups that were advertising against candidates, and they made up names, sounded good if you say it fast.
Affordable Chicago now.
So require more disclosure and sooner.
And say their name right on. This campaign ad is paid for not by the candidate or the opponent, but rather this outside
We need
group.
some caps.
The more disclosure, the better.
But then the caps get busted.
But can you do it on a local level?
We need to not allow it.
Does it need to be federal in the end, or could you?
No, I think you have state law. Matter of fact, I signed a bill to have limits on campaign finance. When I was governor, we signed that. And we kept that for a while, and then Browner came along, and he busted the caps. And unfortunately, you know, governors since then, but both Democrat and Republican, have gone along with that, and I don't think that's a good thing.
We definitely need some limits, Paris.
All right, I want to send it back out to the field here. And a race that hasn't been called yet, but it looks like it's pretty close. This is the Cook County Board. Toni Preckwinkle has maintained a huge lead all night against Brendan Reilly. And do we have Casey Cronus out at the Preck? Yes, we do. Casey, it doesn't look like this has been called, but are you hearing anything from the campaign that they're ready to declare a victory and make a speech?
Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle has yet to make an appearance here at Little Black Pearl in North Kenwood, but we feel that it might be coming soon because the word is that perhaps Alderman Brendan Reilly has just conceded to this race. We are waiting for confirmation on that, but pretty soon here we are expecting Preckwinkle to arrive. We've heard some cheers throughout the night as the vote totals continue to trickle in. As you mentioned, Preckwinkle carries a wide lead right now. If this race is called in her favor, which is what it looks like is going to happen, she will have officially secured her 5th term. This will be a tie with longtime politician George W. Dunn, who currently holds the record for longest serving Cook County Board President. Well, at the end of this next term, if Preckwinkle indeed secures it, she will tie that record. Paris.
Thanks, Casey. So it seems like some celebrations at the Preckwinkle headquarters are in order pretty soon if Brendan Reilly indeed has called to concede there. Monica King, is this a surprising result or is this pretty much expected?
He has given her the sort of the toughest run for her money that she's seen in a while, and there were those the talk of the bad Tyler technology stuff, but Toni Preckwinkle's got a lot of name recognition, and looks like she's going to tie George Dunn for the 5-term Cook County Board President.
That's quite a. They might have to put a plaque on the county building because there's a plaque for George Dunn. It's the George Dunn.
Right.
County building,
I just passed
isn't it?
on the way here.
Yeah. So if she's going to tie and maybe overtake him,
Dunn
seems
Preckwinkle.
The Dunn Preckwinkle. Now we're getting into Trump territory. We're renaming everything. The Trump Kennedy Center, the Preckwinkle Dunn County Board building. I don't know if it rolls off the tongue. What about, all right, let's go back to this Senate race. Stratton continuing to hold the lead there. Jamal, were you saying that Poly Market, this betting, that's
they've
really
called
controversial.
it.
They're calling that one.
Yeah,
not the AP, but
not the AP, but they're saying that Juliana is gonna pull us out. I wouldn't be shocked. I saw final polls that showed that she was in the lead. What do they call it? Stratton minimum.
Stratton minimum.
Stratton minimum. She's had it over the past few weeks, and I think that folks went to the polls. I mean, I was at church Sunday, and JB, the governor, was speaking at the church for her. She wasn't even there. He was telling everybody. He pulled out scriptures and everything on Sunday.
Wow. Well, 45,000 votes separate them. So I mean, there's only 67% in, according to the AP. That's it's not insurmountable. It's still fairly close. But Governor Quinn. We spoke about this, in a primary, you can say, she had this F Trump ad. You can say F Trump and win. Does she have to do more in a general?
Well, I hope we can put that one away. You can campaign against Trump, and especially what's happening in Iran right now. Trump brought us into war. He said he was against forever wars, and this has got to be a big issue in the fall. We, the
gas
people,
prices are skyrocketing.
Exactly, but also, we cannot have presidents running out of control recklessly, committing men and women from our country to foreign wars. There's no rationale for it. He never delivered that rationale to the people of America, and I think the people of our country are much against this war. The polls show that, and I think that'll be a big issue for Juliana if she wins, as well as all the other candidates who get elected to Congress. We've got to have an organized movement.
Well, we know who she's going to face in the primary. It's going to be Don Tracy. Don Tracy won the Republican primary according to AP. They called that one so far with 37% of the votes in. He's up 40% to 21% against Jeannie Evans, who's a Chicago Hyde Park person. Jeannie Evans, didn't have a lot of name recognition, so Tracy going to move on. I just wonder, does anybody here see the Republican Party pouring money into this thing? Given the fact that this is a huge uphill battle for anybody, any Republican, especially in a time like this where the Republican Party is not projected to do well. But does the Republican Party throw money in and say, all right, Don, give it a shot?
Well, I mean, who's going to put up money against JB?
That's right.
That's the issue. You got to have a Republican that got JB's pockets, and I think they're going to look at this.
Dick Uihlein, he's got JB's pockets.
Yeah,
Well, they say it's money wasted.
They'll say it's money wasted, I think, and with especially being a Democrat-leaning state, I don't know if anybody want to burn money like that against JB. So I think that they may go ahead and let Juliana, if she wins, or Raja, you just allow them to go on and win the general. I don't see the Republicans playing in this race.
And you know what? Just as we're talking, we have a statement in from the Pritzker campaign on Darren Bailey winning the GOP gubernatorial race. You know, Jamal, that they're just like, yes, they're giddy. They pop some champagne.
They are happy.
I don't mean to say, look, we don't know what's going to happen, but you, as you said, Pritzker people have been wanting to face Darren Bailey. They wanted to face him 4 years ago. Quote, Darren Bailey has proven time and again that he only cares about winning Trump's approval. His ultra-MAGA values threaten to move Illinois backward, making him far too conservative for this state. Illinois deserves a governor who's focused on what matters, and that's what Governor Pritzker is delivering, lowering health care costs, expanding child care and paid leave, and protecting fundamental freedoms. You know, before we talk about Pritzker running for president, he's got to run for governor. He's going to run against Darren Bailey.
Yeah.
What do we expect in this race?
A replay of last time?
A full replay.
Well, I just hope part of JB's agenda is lowering property taxes.
Yeah.
You know, that's an affordability issue.
Well, there are people fed up.
millionaire's tax.
Yeah, there are people fed up with a lot of local issues, but clearly bigger turnout in the Democratic side makes sense. More contested races. But same thing with Don Tracy. You don't see a Republican coming in. Dick Uihlein.
No.
The other guy that just,
Ken
Griffin.
I got mailings from Juliana, and she said she's for a millionaire amendment to reduce middle class taxes. That was on her literature.
Stratton.
Juliana Stratton, I meant to say, yeah.
Right.
But so I would hope that she would persuade her running mate and all the candidates on the Democratic ticket. This is a Democratic Party issue. We've got to reduce the cost of home ownership and high property taxes. If you really want to help people live from paycheck to paycheck, that's got to be the economic issue.
It seems like at this point, neither party has really figured out the formula here. Neither party has a lock on this. Neither party's been successful. The Trump administration so far not successful on this issue. Democratic Party was not seen as...
And this is why I'm critical of our politicians here in this state, because, you know, what I love about the governor here, Governor Quinn, is that he was truly in tune with the communities. I mean, I was on the phone with the owner of Chicago Chicken and Waffles yesterday, and they were like, oh, you'll be on with the governor? He always stopped in our restaurant. You know, like, we need more politicians that are being in tune with the communities, that are meeting the business owners, that are meeting the single mothers who need support, that are meeting the men who are coming out from incarceration. Like, people on the ground, and see how we can bring these issues together and talk about the economic crisis that is happening in our neighborhoods. My taxes doubled, Paris. My taxes are almost $10,000 now in Chicago.
So does that make you a Pat Hines voter then?
Well, that definitely made me text Fritz Kagi and say, what the heck is going on? And he responded seriously.
You know what, guys? The AP has called Preckwinkle finally, and she is addressing the supporters there. Let's go to that.
Birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, the voters of Cook County have made their decision. And I'm honored to have earned their support. I love this job. And tonight, I'm deeply grateful for the chance to keep doing it. It's not a job I do alone. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working alongside extraordinary public servants, people who believe, as I do, that government can and should do more for the people it serves. And together we've built something special in Cook County. 16 years ago, the Cook County I stepped into was very different from the one we see today. The county faced real financial instability. Public trust was low, and most people didn't think much about county government or expect very much from it. The challenges were real, but so was the opportunity. We stabilized our finances. We strengthened our public health system. We invested in our communities. And because of that work, we've seen real results. the kind that make a real difference in people's lives. People can count on top quality health care, families living in safer communities, businesses with new opportunities. We reshaped county government into something more engaged, more proactive, and more willing to act as a partner, advocate, and ally for our residents. And in doing so, we became a place willing to do things other governments haven't even dared to try. From erasing medical debt to piloting guaranteed income, Cook County is leading the way. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because we believed county government could be better, and we were willing to work hard to make it so. I want to thank the voters of Cook County for once again placing your confidence in me. I do not take it for granted. I also want to thank all those who gave their time, their energy, their talent, and their resources to this campaign. Those who knocked on doors, made phone calls, organized events, and spoke to their neighbors about why this work matters. You've no doubt heard me say that democracy is at the same time the best and the most fragile form of government on earth, because it depends on an active, engaged citizenry. And tonight we've seen that work in action. And I promise you this, we'll keep doing the work.
Yes.
Because the progress we've made is real. But progress only lasts if we defend it and we fight for it.
That's right.
And we know how to do both.
Yeah.
We're going to protect what we've built. We're going to make sure Cook County remains a place where people feel safe, supported, and included. And we're going to make sure that county government delivers for its residents every day, in every community, for everyone who calls this place home. Thank you.
All right, so that's Toni Preckwinkle. She's going to be, as we mentioned, tying the record, fifth term as Cook County Board President, a commanding victory tonight over someone who was thought of as a pretty tough challenger, Brendan Reilly, the longtime 42nd Ward Alderman. Big issues in this race: crime, property taxes. They were pretty much in agreement on immigration, although he supported a more, maybe a tougher approach on immigration, but not happy with Trump or ICE. And now going back to that Senate race, 70% in, Juliana Stratton just continuing to hold on to about a 6% lead here. Certainly an uphill battle for Raja Krishnamoorthi. Nothing called here. Brett, let's go over to you. What do you got? Any new results or anything you're looking at really closely?
Well, it looks like Illinois District 1, who will face off against the incumbent Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who ran unopposed, will run against Christian Maxwell. So this race just called within the last 2 minutes right now from the AP. About 64% of the vote in for Christian Maxwell. So it's going to be Christian Maxwell running against the incumbent Congressman Jonathan Jackson. But we're still looking at the tallies for the race for U.S. Senate. But it looks like Juliana Stratton is putting more distance between her and Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. Certainly we're going to have more as the results come in.
Okay, so Jonathan Jackson, there is one Jackson, member of the Jackson family in Congress, and will face a Republican challenger. That would seem to be a tough road to hoe there. And in your district, Christian Maxwell?
That's in my district. I think Jonathan is a stronghold, but Christian Maxwell, she's a highly intelligent woman with an amazing story and amazing family. I thought she would run Democrat, but she's a Republican. So, but I've seen some stuff of hers and pretty shocked at some of the great videos that I have seen of her.
So is she more of a moderate or?
She is actually more of a moderate. I don't think she's a Trumpian, but I think she wanted to run on the right to give him, a real challenger. But I think, this is my district is super Democrat, so it's definitely going to be an uphill battle. But I do like Christian Maxwell and what I've seen of her.
Speaking of, two uncontested races, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul uncontested, and there's a Republican. We know his name. His name is Bob Fioretti. He's run for a few offices before, so it looks like he's gonna run for this one. So there will be a contested general there. Alexi Janulius, treasurer, uncontested. So he's, everyone's
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State.
I'm sorry, Secretary. He was the Treasury Secretary of State. Everybody believes that he is gearing up for another race.
Yeah.
A race which what you flirted with and you've run for.
Mayor of Chicago.
Mayor of Chicago.
Unfortunately.
Do we turn our attention to that tomorrow?
Tomorrow turns to the mayor's race for sure.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the mayor's petition drive, if you want to run for mayor or alderman, it begins in the summer. I think it's like June
August.
or July. No, it's earlier than that.
We're not going to get any breaks in terms of covering elections, not this year.
By design, the mayor's race is always a couple months after a midterm when people have voter fatigue and the weather's terrible.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Yeah.
On purpose.
There's a reform. Why don't we align the mayor's race with the federal cycle here?
Please do, and then I'll win every time.
All right, Jamal, you ready? What are you thinking about this term? You going to take on the big gobs of money from Janulius?
Well, we'll see. I think this race needs to kind of pan out so that we can kind of see who's going to be in it. But we definitely need a great choice for mayor this round, and we need someone who really cares about all people and can bring this city together. This city is in shambles right now. We don't have a head of CTA, CPS, CHA, board, zoning chair. Whoever's the next mayor is going to have a tough time getting this city back together.
The finances in particular.
The finances.
But, Chicago's the only big city without municipal initiative. They have it in New York. They have it in L.A.
What does that mean?
Municipal initiative is where voters by petition can put ordinances on the ballot and pass them by referendum.
Like they do in California all the time.
Yeah.
Well, not just California. Every city in Michigan, Ohio, Missouri has the power in their community where voters, if they see something wrong in city government, can gather signatures on a petition for an ordinance to straighten things out, and then let the voters vote on it. That's one of the reasons Chicago has had so many problems. It's been too much machine and not enough voters. And one way to even that up is to have the referendum process here.
Yeah. All right, we are in the 9 o'clock hour, and we're waiting for some more races. They could be called very soon. We know that LaShawn Ford has won. He gave a victory speech. Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle, she has won. Commanding victory over Brendan Reilly. Donna Miller in the 2nd Congressional District. Commanding victory over Jesse Jackson Jr. and Robert Peters. So Darren Bailey, the winner on the GOP side, to take on Governor Pritzker. We have a lot of results. We're expecting that Senate race. Those numbers are coming in fast. Why don't we go to the 8th Congressional? This is Melissa Bean, more of a centrist Democrat. She had she was in Congress before, and she wants that seat back. And this is like Hoffman Estates and Schaumburg and that area. Brett, are you looking at seeing any results in the 8th Congressional there? This one isn't exactly a runaway as some might have expected.
Well, that was just one of the other races that we were talking about another political comeback since Melissa Bean had lost her seat to Joe Walsh some time ago. Yeah. Things are a little different now, so she was hoping to get that seat. If I can just click out, because I was looking at a different race right now. We'll go back to U.S. House District. We'll go to the 8th one.
That's a Bernie guy.
Right here as I'm looking through. Yeah, it looks like 86% of the vote in. The AP is still not called it, but there's still about 3,000 votes hanging between Melissa Bean and Junaid Ahmed, who is kind of a political newcomer in the tech world and raised a significant amount of money to be a player in this race. And I guess you can make a case that he has made a name for himself in this race. But right now it is Melissa Bean who is taking that seat in the Illinois District 8 on the Democratic side.
All right, Brett, thanks very much. Let's just flip through everything we know right now. We're using the AP results here, and let's start with GOP Governor Darren Bailey. He is the victor in that one, declared by the AP, taking over, defeating Ted Dabrowski, James Mendrick, and Rick Heidner. So he's going to take on Governor Pritzker. There you go. So Darren Bailey all the way up to 50, but this wasn't even close. I mean, there were, again, a split. You know, if you look at social media, you saw a lot of folks on more conservative circles saying, you know, Darren Bailey, nice guy, but he can't win. He can't win. Don't vote for him. But it didn't really catch on. He is, and especially downstate. It looks like a downstate kind of Rose Garden strategy was the way to go. I expect we'll see him more up in this area, maybe a condo in the Sears Tower or the Willis Tower, and not the
maybe an
Hancock
Englewood.
Building. Maybe in Englewood. You have an extra room? You got an extra room down in your place?
We'll get him in a local.
Jane Byrne thing.
Jane Byrne thing. Okay. Here's the U.S. Senate Democratic primary, the most closely watched of all these races, I think, and one of national importance. Juliana Stratton still 6 percentage points here with about 70% reporting. Robin Kelly, a distant third here. So again, it's going to come down to Stratton and Krishnamoorthi. Really, Pritzker versus Krishnamoorthi's sizable fundraising ability. So that one could be called pretty soon. But
versus Big Tech.
Big Tech, yeah. That
versus Big Tech, yeah.
Correct. Okay, Don Tracy is the winner in the U.S. Senate GOP. You know, notable thing here, much smaller voter turnout on this side. He defeats Jeannie Evans, who was a Chicago lawyer, a Hyde Park native, kind of a newcomer. Don Tracy, the former Illinois GOP chairman, who's been around Republican circles for a long time, lives in Springfield. He knows the state pretty well, so he's going to take on whoever wins. Daniel Biss, all right, that's down to 4% now. So Abu Ghazal has been closing this gap, 74% reporting. You know, she would have to have a lot of, she'd have to have a big percentage in the remaining votes if she's going to overtake him. But no one calling that race yet. Fine there in third at 20%. So Daniel Biss holding on. But let's use that phrase we've used tonight, nervously optimistic, cautiously optimistic, trepidatiously optimistic.
Yeah.
So that one's coming right down to the wire, and he's, as the mayor of Evanston's, going to have to keep the bars open in Evanston a little later tonight. We've got the District 9 GOP, so this is John Ellison. Now look at the voter numbers in this. Much lower voter turnout. So again, this would be an astonishing upset if this winner here, Mr. Ellison, were to have much of a chance against the winner, be it Biss or Agabazala in the 9th Congressional District. But this is the GOP winner here. Let's keep going down in what we know so far here in the 9 o'clock hour, 2 hours after polls have closed. Okay, we've got, Illinois Comptroller. This is an interesting one. So, again, Margaret Croak is the Pritzker-backed candidate. He's poured a lot of money into her. You see her ads with her children. This is to be the state's top bill payer here that pays the state's bills. Susana Mendoza, you know, highly regarded for her term, moving that bill backlog that she took over with after Governor Rauner and Mike Madigan's endless fights in these years without a budget. That was something like 16, what was it, billion down to people are actually getting paid on time. But
she supported Holly Kim.
She supported Holly Kim, who came in third. Karina Villa was supported by the progressive community, the CTU. So very close there. So again, a battle of the major local interests here. And we highly expect Ms. Mendoza to run for mayor. She's hinted at that. GOP controller, well, that's interesting. 0 votes.
Well, that's...
I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know what's going on with the tally.
I don't know what's going on with the tally there, but...
So I've got a question. I feel kind of dumb asking this. So if Toni Preckwinkle won the Democratic primary for Cook County president, she's essentially won the race.
There is not, as far as I know, there is not a Republican challenger in this race.
Will there be a third party? Unless Fioretti is running for it.
Can he run for 2 offices at the same time? We do know that, okay, the assessor, we just saw those results. Kagi is still down by about 5%. Pat Hines, the challenger, you know, all right, 4% here with 92% reporting. Okay, so that's it's close, but you know that's a lot. He's going to have to get a lot of remaining votes here.
It may be the biggest surprise of this election.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of nip and tuck, but clearly Hines did not have as much money as his opponent, but he is over 50%.
It is about the property taxes. I mean, the property tax system and all the offices and everything, it confuses voters, right? Voters don't know who do I blame for the property taxes. And I think that you have every election cycle, you know, you have all of the different fields where folks are blaming each other for the property tax system. So with the assessor's office, I think that with the taxes just taking the hike in November, it was very hard for Fritz Kagi to create the messaging he needed to get people on board with his assessments when people looked at those tax bills. Because I told you, when I looked at mine and I sent it to Fritz, he said, seriously. I'm like, seriously what? Who am I blaming for that?
Was
for
it
my
a seriously
taxes
question mark
No.
or seriously exclamation
It was
point?
just seriously, like,
But Cook
wow.
County is the biggest county by far in Illinois, and the election results of a new assessor should send a message down to Springfield that property tax relief and reform must be on the agenda, on the ballot.
I will say, though, the winner will not be uncontested in the general because there's a libertarian, and he's made sure that I know if I. He's got me. He's contacted me on X and an email. Don't forget about me, Nico Tsoutsoulis, who's a landlord, and he came on. We did an interview with him, and he is a libertarian candidate for controller. So, looking like Hines here.
Assessor.
I'm sorry, for assessor. You know what? It's getting late, and that's why Dawn Hasbrook. The wonderful Dawn Hasbrook is about to take over now. She's going to take you the rest of the way until 10. But I do want to thank all of you so much. This has been a great discussion. A lot of ground covered here. Jamal Green, Governor Pat Quinn, Monica Eng from Axios. This has been a lot of fun. Stick around. Let's take a break. Dawn's going to take over.
One more thing.
Go for it.
32, your channel really deserves a lot of credit for all the debates you put together, for all the offices. This is what robust competition is all about.
We had great debates. We had a great conversation.
I mean, I think he's been the only one really this round who has been keeping everybody informed.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you to the bosses here that want to put on this kind of programming. It's vital right now, and we're going to be back right after this. Thanks very much.
You join us now in our 9 o'clock hour. We have election coverage for you. I'm Dawn Hasbrook. We're going to check in right now with Casey Cronus for the latest on what's happening at her watch party. Casey, what is the mood there tonight? I don't know if Casey can hear us.
Hi, Dawn. Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle is joining us now, and today also happens to be her birthday. President Preckwinkle, how are you feeling tonight? You just announced victory on the stage, defeating 42nd Ward Alderman Brendan Reilly.
You know, I'm very grateful to the people of Cook County for entrusting me with this position for 4 more years. I love my job, and I'm grateful.
You campaigned on your tenure, on your experience, financial stability, offering health care and investment to communities. What will the next 4 years look like?
You know, half our budget is health care. And in this moment, when the federal government is withdrawing support for health care for Americans, we're going to step up and provide the care we've always provided, and high quality, efficient care. And I'm proud of the work that's done by our health system.
You will now tie the record for longest serving Cook County Board President alongside George Dunn. What does that say about the job that you've done and the job you plan to do in this next 5th term?
Well, the people have decided that I get to do this for 4 more years, and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Dawn.
All right, Casey, sounds like a party there. We want to bring in Fox Chicago's Brett Bagansky to break down the major races. Brett, I know you've been following a lot, so let's get started.
All right, so the big race that many are still watching right now is that closely contested U.S. Senate race, and let's go to those the results right now as they are still rolling in. But, you know, it's been back and forth right now, but you have Juliana Stratton taking the lead right now, breaking down the vote totals right now. So the AP's got about 74% of the votes in right now. From the last half hour or so, there was about a 45,000 vote lead between Juliana Stratton over Raja Krishnamoorthi. And I just did a little math on my calculator here between the vote totals between Stratton and Krishnamoorthi. There's now about 54,000 votes between the two people. But going over what these two candidates has raised, you had Stratton raising more than $4 million during this whole thing. She's obviously the lieutenant governor of J.B. Pritzker. This has been a really big night for some of the candidates that Governor Pritzker has been endorsing here. But, you know, Congressman Krishnamoorthi had raised nearly $4 million as well. But, you know, he left Congressional District 8 to run for this U.S. Senate seat. And if you just heard us in the last hour with this fantastic panel here, he could be one man who could be without a job and going back in the private sector in just a little bit. But the other closely watched race right here is the House District 9 on the Democratic side. It still looks like it is too close to call right now, but right now it is still Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss with the lead right here. The surprise of this race that we've been also discussing here on this panel was who's coming in second place. Newcomer, who is she calls herself a journalist. Some people call her a social media influencer, Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, who is still only just about 4,000 votes and change that separates her between Mayor Biss, and it's State Senator Laura Fine that's coming in third place there. But looking at the race here, it is still too close to call with about 86% of the vote to call in this race. And then before that race was decided, when it comes to District 9 on the GOP side, it goes to John Ellison, who took first place. He is a pastor from Arlington Heights. He defeated Paul Freeman, who took second place. He's a sophomore writer. This was his first time running for office in this race. So it is going to be potentially John Ellison taking on, and it's still too close to call in that Democratic district for number 9 right there. So we're still looking at that race, whether it could be Daniel Biss or Kat Abou-Ghazaleh. So in the race for House District 7 on the Democratic side, he was around 8:40 tonight. We found out that Melissa Conyers Irvin decided to concede to LaShawn Ford, and right now, looking at these results, it doesn't look like the AP has called this race. And of course, Ford was endorsed by the man he could be replacing, longtime Congressman Danny Davis. So that is a race that we're going to be watching and looking for speeches on that side. But on the Republican side for that race for House District 7, you've got whoever comes out on the Democratic side, they're going to face Chad Coppey, who has run for this seat before against Congressman Davis. He's also run for the 8th District as well. He's actually run for office a few different times. So looking at the change of the guard and 2026 being a year for some new blood going to Washington, D.C., we're going to see if you're going to have some new blood on the Democratic side, but also the Republican side, since some are getting the nomination tonight as the votes are still coming in.
Thank you, Brett, for those numbers. We'll check back in with you in a bit. But our Tia Ewing is at a watch party for Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. I'm sure they're happy tonight. She's vying for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate seat. Tia, how's it going there? What's the vibe?
Was like a club atmosphere here, Don. I have to hold my headphones to even hear what you have to say as the music is going here. This race has not been called yet, but if you look at the numbers, it really tells the story here. About 61,000 votes separating Juliana Stratton and Raja Krishnamoorthi, with 77% of the votes counted so far. We knew this would be close. I don't know if people imagined it would be this close, but looking at the poll numbers early on, they really told the story here. But let's talk a little bit about Juliana Stratton and really what she's standing for. She wants to increase the minimum wage on a federal level, bringing it up to $25 an hour. She also wants to completely abolish ICE. Now, we did get a chance to talk to Timmy Knutson. He is alderman in the city of Chicago of the 43rd Ward. We talked about how close this race would be. We also talked about the controversial topic of money being at stake here, specifically PAC money. I want to make sure, see where we are with these votes. So right now, we're seeing that Juliana Stratton, 40% of the vote, followed by Raja Krishnamoorthi with 29% of the vote, and then there's Robin Kelly. But I want you to hear what the alderman had to say about why he's supporting Stratton and what he thinks about this race. Take a listen.
If you look at the grading reports of the independent groups, Juliana didn't take any corporate money. She was the only candidate who didn't take corporate money, and I think she was the only candidate who has not taken APAC money. So, of course, candidates are going to throw those punches at each other, and I'll say, you know, independently, I think there's just too much money in these races right now, the congressional races across the board. What I believe about finance is you do not need all the money. If you are a good candidate and your public believes in you, you only need enough to get your name out there.
Now, back out here live, I do want to point out the fact that Juliana's team told us that she's in the building. She's watching these numbers come in, and as you can see right now, they are updating by the minute. Right now, 78% of the vote has been counted, and Juliana Stratton has 393,000 votes so far, followed by Raja Krishnamoorthi at 335,294. This race has not been called yet, but as soon as it is, Dawn, I guarantee you we'll bring it to you live. Back here, I can tell you people are chanting, and you will know when this race is secured in favor of Juliana Stratton, because guess what? The crowd, if no one else, will let us know. Dawn, for now, I'll send it back to you.
Well, Tia, I see a lot of AKAs back in there strolling already. Let me ask you again, exactly where is her party? Tell us the building.
So we are in Sin City Studios. If you've ever been here, this is a very fun space, a lot of open space here, almost like a loft space. I want to have that camera pan around, give you kind of panoramic view of the sights and sounds here. So yeah, a lot of space in here tonight, and really not a lot of room though on the floor, Dawn, here in this space that we know is part of a CineSpace. So yeah, we're in here right now, Sin City Studios. The vibe is like a club atmosphere. If you've ever been to a Chicago club on a Saturday night, that's the vibes. You know, Juliana Stratton is from the south side of Chicago. Humble beginnings. Her father, a radiologist. Her mother, a Chicago public school teacher. She herself went to Kenwood High School and then decided to go to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Then decided to go to DePaul for law school. Was an arbitrator before becoming an Illinois state representative, and then eventually becoming lieutenant governor right under J.B. Pritzker, who in fact is the biggest spender here, right? Has the most to lose in this race. He put up about $5 million supporting Juliana Stratton, even more money than that when you look at some of the PACs. But he has a lot to lose, and a lot of people believe that his power, in fact, rests on this race. But as of right now, I want to go back to these numbers because I know they're updating by the minute. They are not final yet, but just wanting to double check, see where we are here. Again, still 78% of that vote counted, and Juliana Stratton leading the way. But of course, Dawn, you hear the applause. A lot of applause in this room. You don't know if they're applauding because they're happy to see each other or applauding because of the numbers rolling in. But when they do roll in, those final numbers, we'll bring it to you live. And if, in fact, Juliana Stratton does win, we know she's already in the building, so we expect her to take the stage as well.
All right. Thank you, Tia, for showing us the scene. Yes, I see 2 floors of people, and it sounds like they're playing the music she likes, house music, already in the background.
Yeah,
so
they're playing
ready.
house music.
Yeah.
They're playing a lot of house music, which is definitely all about what Chicago is about. And you're right, it's 2 floors. There's the top floor, and I can't show you that, but people are lined up around the top floor, and then this space pretty much covered. So yeah, it's a vibe here. It's a Chicago vibe, Dawn, to say the very least. I'll send it back to you.
Yes, I could tell. All right, Tia, thank you. We want to check in with Leslie Moreno, who's at the watch party for Representative Raja Krishnamoorthi. I'm sure the vibe is different there, Leslie, as they continue to watch the numbers that they're watching where Tia is.
Hey, Dawn, good evening. Yeah, much different scene here compared to where Tia Ewing is at. Last we checked, Krishnamoorthi was down by about 50, 60,000, give or take. We want to give you a quick pan of the room here. Nonetheless, people are here supporting Congressman Krishnamoorthi. Again, at the beginning of this, when we first arrived here, you felt the energy was confident, electric, and you can feel that shift as the night went on. I do want to talk a little bit about this race, though, because a lot of money has gone into this. Many people have called this a money war. We know Fair Shake has spent millions backing Congressman Krishnamoorthi. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker also spending millions of his own money backing his rival Juliana Stratton. Again, tens of millions of dollars have gone into this Senate race. And not just a big deal in terms of money. This is also very important for Congressman Krishnamoorthi in terms of cultural and historical. If he wins, he would be one step closer to becoming the first Indian American senator out of the state of Illinois. And he talked about this importance, the importance of this, and what this would mean to him and his people earlier this evening. I do want to point out, though, and I'm not sure if this has anything to do with how the numbers are looking right now, or if it's just a coincidence. If you look, if we pan Raphael over there to the left, we did have the numbers and the board up on the Jumbotron there on the screen. We did notice that in the last 30 minutes or so, that has since been taken down. Again, not sure if that's just a coincidence or maybe they didn't want to see those numbers up on the screen. But we did notice that we've been trying to check in to see why that was exactly. But we are being told that Congressman Krishnamoorthi is in the building. He is here with his wife and his 3 children. He is, again, expected to speak at some point later this evening. Dawn?
Leslie, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you. We want to also check in with Joni Lum, who's at the watch party for Daniel Biss, running for the U.S. House seat in Congressional District number 9. Joni, how's it looking there?
Don, the campaign manager just came out and said that the candidate, Daniel Biss, is going to be speaking to the crowd soon. I've got Josina Morita with us, Cook County Commissioner, also ran for State Central Committee tonight. You're here at this camp, though. People are excited about the numbers.
I'm sorry?
People are excited about the numbers.
Oh, yeah. We're very optimistic tonight as we see the numbers come in from suburban Cook County and the city of Chicago. While we're still waiting to see some of the Lake County and McHenry County numbers coming in, the mathematic possibility, and Daniel's a mathematician, he knows these things, is starting to get slimmer and slimmer.
They said that they would wait until AP called this, but we're looking now at 89% of the vote in. You said McHenry County comes in late. I think in the other camp, in Kat Abaguzala's camp, they're waiting for Chicago City. They feel like she has popularity there, but you have seen those numbers.
Yeah, I think that we have about 10% still out in the city, but the bulk of the reporting that hasn't come in is coming from Lake County and McHenry County, and if the trends hold with where Daniel Biss has had a larger margin in suburban Cook and Lake and McHenry, I think that we'll start to see that margin, become less possible for.
It's a big night to replace Jan Schakowsky, who was in office for 27 years. You said that she is here tonight. Did you get to speak to her?
She is. She's here tonight. She's very happy to see that, her choice, Daniel Biss, is the likely successor. She supported him and endorsed him a few months ago. And, I think Jan believes that he embodies what she has been, which is a fighter. Somebody who knows how to fight in Congress, in D.C. on legislation, but also to fight in the streets. And I think that's something that a lot of us, including myself, endorsed him because we saw that he could do both.
Josina Morita, thank you so much. She's your local Cook County Commissioner, has worked with Daniel Biss in the past and now. And so we're waiting for the candidate to come and talk to all the supporters who are here. It's a full place. I'm Joni Lum. Back to you.
Joni, thank you. All right, let's bring in political reporter Parrish Hess to talk more about the elections. First, I want to know what surprised you.
I thought that Brendan Reilly might put up a bigger challenge against Toni Preckwinkle. I thought that Conyers Irvin, with all that outside money she got, might put up a bigger challenge. But in the 7th Congressional District, Danny Davis, that's who he wanted, LaShawn Ford. But, you know, we talk about special interests and the flood of money that came in, a record amount, too much, as you heard our panelists say before. The biggest special interest winner tonight, the clearest special interest winner, J.B. Pritzker. J.B., if the Stratton result holds, obviously that the majority of her fundraising was J.B. Pritzker's money, okay? And then in the comptroller, J.B. Pritzker was very much involved in Margaret Croak. She's up by about 3 or 4. She's held a consistent lead as these results have come in. So Margaret Croak was his backed candidate. And then in the GOP primary for governor, he was a little worried, I think, about Ted Dabrowski, a Chicago North Shore suburban guy, maybe not as culturally conservative as Darren Bailey, but Darren Bailey came out big, won big in this primary, and you know Pritzker clearly believes Darren Bailey is the most beatable candidate that he could face. So this Stratton, you know, kind of got off to a late start. Raja Krishnamoorthi got up, you know, a lot of fundraising. He got his ads up saying, "Call me Raja," introducing himself to voters quick. They were everywhere. He was such a prolific fundraiser that it got written about that maybe he was too prolific, too many corporations, too much whip cracking in terms of getting people to raise money for him. Stratton came on late. Maybe that was a strategy all along. Let Raja get on the air first and then have Stratton kind of vault later. But if these results hold, we talked about APAC, we talked about AI, crypto, all their results are mixed, you know, for their interest. J.B. Pritzker, he won everything that he wanted to win tonight, and he's going to run for governor and maybe for president in 2028. But this cements him as firmly the leader of the Illinois Democratic Party, the party that obviously dominates the state politically. So Governor Pritzker, his power has never been stronger. I mean, we talked about Mike Madigan for so many years. It's Pritzker's party. It's Pritzker's state right now.
Well, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but the election results are on our website, foxchicago.com. Keep it right here. Paris, stay close by. More election results are ahead. We'll be right back.
It's extremely sad. It's just, I can't put it into words.
Firefighters, everyone, mourning the loss of one of their own. Hear the legacy he left behind. And we continue our Election Day coverage, bringing you the latest results impacting you. But first, we want to check in on Brett. He is updating us on a few races. Give us the latest numbers, Brett.
All right, so no surprise here for the Illinois Congressional 1 District on the Democratic side here. So the incumbent Congressman Jonathan Jackson, he ran unopposed in this race. He's going to win. This is a district that represents much of the city's south side and parts of the southwest here. So Congressman Jackson is going to face Christian Maxwell. The AP called this race just before 9 p.m. Today. And one of our political analysts from earlier described Maxwell as more of a moderate on the Republican side here. You know, she's in her 30s, so she's going to face Congressman Jonathan Jackson in that first congressional race in November here. But one of the other big races that we were talking about here, it was one where we were talking about becoming, it was like a political comeback. It was potentially one of redemption here. So this is the one for House District 2 here. And we were thinking maybe there could be another political comeback happening tonight. Well, it turns out when it comes to House District 2, it was going to be Donna Miller's night who was going to win House District 2. And she ended up taking the primary for that district. So this is one that touches the south side, but also parts of Kankakee and Vermilion County. So you're getting into parts of central Illinois there. But, you know, Donna Miller ended up raising right around $2 million here compared to Jesse Jackson Jr., who had about $288,000. But this was a House seat that he ran. He'd been in this seat before, ran it for years. He has stepped down in 2012, and then he ended up going to federal prison for misusing campaign funds. So, you know, it's been a very tough year for the Jackson family, of course, with the passing of the Reverend Jesse Jackson here. But this could have been the redemption, the comeback for Jesse Jackson Jr. But tonight it was Donna Miller's night going in and going into that race here. But the other surprising race that we're following here is the one for Cook County Assessor. And this is a race that still hasn't been called here. So this is between Fritz Kagi and Pat Hines, who is the Lyons Township Assessor here. So if we could take some of those results for Cook County Assessor and just looking at the race, because it's still too close to call right now. You got about 82% of the votes in. It is Pat Hines who has the lead over the incumbent Fritz Kagi. So there's about 26,000 votes and change between Pat Hines and Fritz Kagi. Our panel talking about earlier just about the issue of property taxes and the fact that so many people's property tax bills are so high right here. Could that have been a deciding factor here in this race here? Well, we'll find out since we have so much to go here. But Dawn, we're going to send it back to you because it sounds like we got some more people on standby during this election night.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but Kagi just conceded. So thanks for those updated numbers. But we want to check in with the Raja campaign. He is speaking right now. Let's.
I could not possibly have done this without their love and support. Finally, I want to thank this country, the greatest country on earth, for giving an immigrant kid and his family the chance to live the American dream. Only in this country could my story happen. And only in this country could a kid like me serve in the halls of Congress. And now we must come together as Democrats and as Americans to make sure that we return to the principles that made us a beacon of freedom and opportunity for the world. I will have almost a year remaining in the best job I've ever had representing the good people of Illinois' 8th Congressional District. And I pledge to you tonight that I will continue to do that job to the best of my ability to fight for the kind of country we all still believe in. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you were just listening to Raja Krishnamoorthi. Even though that race has not been called, he is conceding. So we expect to hear from Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton shortly. But right now, let's check in with Casey Cronin. She's at the official watch party for Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. Well, you just talked to her. What's the mood like there? Is she still in the building?
Toni Preckwinkle has just exited the building a few minutes ago, but not without a birthday cake. As we know, today is Election Day. It is also St. Patrick's Day, but it is Toni Preckwinkle's 79th birthday, too. Her supporters greeted her by singing happy birthday as she entered the building, and as she exited, they sang once again and gave her a chocolate birthday cake. She now heads toward a 5th term as Cook County Board President, and at the end of these 4 years, this means she will tie the record for longest serving Cook County Board President, alongside longtime politician George Dunn. We spoke with her just after she declared victory here at Little Black Pearl in North Kenwood. Take a listen. President Preckwinkle, how are you feeling tonight? You just announced victory on the stage, defeating 42nd Ward Alderman Brendan Reilly.
You know, I'm very grateful to the people of Cook County for entrusting me with this position for 4 more years. I love my job and I'm grateful.
You campaigned on your tenure, on your experience, financial stability, offering health care and investment to communities. What will the next 4 years look like?
You know, half our budget is health care. And in this moment, when the federal government is withdrawing support for health care for Americans, we're going to step up and provide the care we've always provided, and high quality, efficient care. And I'm proud of the work that's done by our health system.
You will now tie the record for longest serving Cook County Board President alongside George Dunn. What does that say about the job that you've done and the job you plan to do in this next 5th term?
Well, the people have decided that I get to do this for 4 more years, and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Preckwinkle says she is honored to have gained the trust of voters once again. Dawn.
Casey, thank you. Thanks for replaying that interview with her. All right, so let's bring in Paris Schutz. I want to hear more about your thoughts, specifically the Donna Miller-Jesse Jackson race.
The 2nd Congressional District, you know, a lot of folks thought that Jesse Jackson, because of the name recognition, how much the South Side community reveres Reverend Jackson, who just died, that perhaps that would pass on to Jesse Jackson Jr. But folks do remember that he was in Congress. He betrayed their trust at that point, and he apologized for it. He was convicted for campaign fraud and went to jail for it, and so he is not going to go back to Congress. Donna Miller, Cook County Commissioner, will go back. She was the beneficiary of a lot of money from APAC, so that's some of the special interest money. We talked about $35 million in special interest money from APAC, crypto, and AI. And, you know, we wanted to find out tonight, well, do we know more about the direction of the Democratic Party after these results? Is it going to go, you know, anti-Israel and much more far left? Is it going to go pro-Israel, much toward the center, more pragmatic? And we should have just known this. It's yes and. It's everything. It's muddled. It depends on the race. There's no monolith here. Yeah. And so, like I said before, the only special interest that kind of swept the races he wanted to win were J.B. Pritzker. He's got Stratton.
You said AI was all over the place.
AI had supported Jesse Jackson Jr., and they lost that one. They had attacked Robert Peters. He lost. So, you know, APAC, they did well in this. They got Donna Miller. They did well in the 8th. They got Melissa Bean. In the 9th, not so well. Daniel Biss was not their chosen candidate. And in the 7th, Melissa Conyers-Ervin went down. She was their chosen. So they're batting 50-50. So this goes to show you that, you know, everything's local, and it's about the local issues, it's about the local candidates, and that's what we're proving tonight, except for the fact that Governor Pritzker has had a massive impact on some of these big results, and it is laying out exactly the way he wanted. He also endorsed Toni Preckwinkle, and she won by a landslide. So Governor Pritzker, as I said before, if he's going to run for president, tonight was a night that fueled him. It served notice, perhaps, to the nation that at least here in Illinois, he's firmly in charge of the Democratic Party. Will national Democrats take notice? You know, there were some members of the Democratic, the Black Caucus in the House that were not happy about Stratton. Yeah. You know, they didn't want him. They thought Robin Kelly. I mean, they were loyal to Robin Kelly, but will they embrace Stratton now, a newcomer to Washington, if she indeed wins the general? She took a more progressive route. She ran those ads that said F Trump. She wants a $25 minimum wage, which most folks think is not doable, especially if you have a Republican Congress. So, you know, broadening out nationally, what does this say about the nation? A lot of folks won tonight on the power of being anti-Trump. Will some of them have to do more in the general election? Say, I'm against Trump, but also this is what I propose to bring your costs down. And it's not as if they didn't do that. Stratton says the minimum wage is a big part of that. But clearly, there is a chance for Democrats to take the House and the Senate. Republicans' poll numbers drop by the day as long as this Iran war goes on, as long as gas prices go up. Will the Democratic Party nationally rise to that occasion and come up with a message? Because I think voters, both parties are not held in high regard right now. Both parties very unpopular. President Trump, very unpopular. The Congress, very unpopular, as always. Well, who's gonna take advantage of that and say, we've got the messaging here and we've got the plan to fix what's wrong with democracy? There's too much money in these elections. Who's going to address that? Who's going to address costs? Who's going to address the worries about Iran?
Before we run out of time, because a couple of people are coming to the mic, I want to take you back to House District 9. Daniel Biss,
that's
now
a close
the winner, declared the winner. What did you think about Kat's campaign, though? Because she's done pretty well, I mean, relatively speaking.
She did well. She's, on the strength of her grassroots ability to mobilize people with her influencing online.
She was big on TikTok.
But this is in the 9th Congressional District. The Democratic voters there are probably old voters. They have been involved. They're activists in Rogers Park and Andersonville and Edgewater and Evanston. And this is a proof that the new kind of politics that the quote-unquote kids are preaching, it's not here yet, at least in a district like that. Biss is the mayor. Biss got endorsed by Jan Schakowsky, the institutional representative there.
Let's listen to Biss.
Score one for institutional politics.
Yes, he's speaking right now. Let's go to him.
Well, my name is Daniel Biss. And I am proud to be standing before you as the Democratic nominee for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois. A few minutes ago, I received a gracious call from Senator Fine conceding. We've had the race called by media outlets. This has been a heck of a race. 15 candidates. Remarkable people who ran remarkable campaigns. I want to thank all of them for running, for putting themselves out there in this pivotal moment to try to heal this country. I want to particularly congratulate Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, Senator Fine, Senator Simmons, and I look forward to working with all of them and with everyone in this district to do the work to come. But I want to speak particularly about one person whose enormous shoes I have the task of trying to fill. Don't clap yet. Don't clap yet. One person who has been a political hero of mine since before I ever thought to run for office. One person who's been the conscience of our district and the conscience of the Congress for her 14 terms of service. One person who, every time she calls me, I get a little nervous. If Jan Schakowsky's not proud of you, you're doing something wrong. It has been such an honor to be a resident of your district, to wake up every morning, Jan, relieved that you are fighting for us in Washington. It has been an honor to call you a friend. You have been such a mentor. You have been such a role model. And let me say it now, we would not be here tonight without your support in this race. Thank you, Jan Schakowsky. I love you. This race had everything. And it had fundamental questions about who are we going to be as Democratic Party? Are we going to concede in advance, or are we going to fight? Are we going to double down on our progressive values, or are we going to shrink away from protecting the most vulnerable? And tonight, the voters spoke clearly. We're going to stand up. We're going to fight, we will not back down, and we will fight for the progressive values that are the values not only of this district, but of this whole country. And there's a lot to fight for. To fight for an economy that works for everyone, where instead of the wealthy stuffing their pockets at the expense of the rest of us, we have housing that's affordable for all, childcare that's accessible to all, healthcare that's available to all, a tax code that actually works for today's economy and asks the wealthiest to pay their fair share. And a situation where, when things get better in the aggregate, they get better for all of us. And we know why that's not happening right now. It's not a mystery, it's not a coincidence. It's because those with money have too much political power, and they use that political power to rig the system for themselves. It is time for Congress that asserts its power, that acts as a check on not only this administration, but the wealthy that have a stranglehold on our politics in America. Now, I want to mention a particular issue that came up once or twice in this campaign. I am so proud of how we handled the question of Israel and Palestine. Maintaining my core, maintaining our core as a community, understanding the nuance and complexity of the issue, understanding that, yes, the state of Israel was a safe haven for my Holocaust survivor grandparents and their 2-year-old daughter, my mother, in 1948, and at the same time that the oppression of the Palestinian people is an unacceptable stain on the world and on the Jewish people as well, and has to be ended. There was a lot of pressure in this campaign to move away from one or the other of those perspectives, and I was not willing to do it because that's not who I am, and that's not what this district is. This district understands nuance and wants someone who accepts the reality of competing, even contradictory sounding priorities and values and realities. Now, that point of view is not the point of view of APAC. APAC that spent an unbelievable amount of money, over $7 million, to try to buy this seat, to support the idea that we can't accept nuance, that we can't accept the reality of competing narratives, that we can't fight for justice for all, that we can't accept the very Jewish value that there is equal sacred dignity in every single life, and that every person has equal rights to self-determination and to justice. My friends, I'm going to go to Congress and fight for that very basic principle of self-determination and justice for every single human being who lives in the Middle East and anywhere else on this planet. And so,
you've been listening to Daniel Biss accepting the win here tonight. Any thoughts, Paris, before we toss?
Well, it's very interesting that he mentioned APAC very prominently. You know, APAC didn't win this one. They won 2 of the ones they wanted. They lost 2 of the ones they wanted, and so it's a muddled result for that special interest. But you know, it's Daniel Biss again. Score one for the old kind of campaigning, not the new kind.
Right, that Kat did on TikTok and other social media.
Correct.
All right, Paris, thanks. You can find all the election results on our website, foxchicago.com. We'll be right back. All right, I want to bring in both Paris Schutz and Brett Bagansky to talk about the election. So first, Paris, top headlines for you, the big ones.
Top headlines, as I've said before, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he not only put Juliana Stratton and funded her, and she won. He funded Margaret Croak for comptroller. Looks like she's going to win. He backed Toni Preckwinkle. She won. She clocked Brendan Reilly, frankly. And he wanted Darren Bailey. He wanted to take on Darren Bailey. He was afraid of Ted Dabrowski a little bit. Darren Bailey, he is going to take on. He's 4 for 4. He is the boss of the Democratic Party in Illinois now, just like Madigan was for many years. And the only special interest, let's say, because this was dominated by big money special interest, to sweep APAC. They won 2 of the races they wanted. They lost 2 of the races they wanted. So they're not going to get a definitive answer of where Congress is going to go or where the Democratic Party is going to go. Is it going to stick with them on Israel? Is it going to go a different direction? It's going to be split. Yeah. So those are the high-level conclusions.
Okay, and Brett, what about you?
I think one of the big upset here was Donna Miller winning District 2, because that was one of those races where, is this going to be the political comeback of Jesse Jackson Jr.? Just given the last year for the Jackson family, how tough it's been, but also the fact that he wanted this seat for such a long time, and he was in that seat for a while, left in 2012, did time in federal prison, said, look, I made a mistake. We need, just to let I made a mistake, but I also had some redemption here. Clearly, the voters decided Donna Miller, it was going to be Donna Miller's night here, but also Pat Hines for assessor. The fact that Fritz Kagi ended up losing and then conceding the race even before the AP ended up calling it there. That was another surprising thing as we were talking about the issue of affordability, property taxes, who's at fault here, who's to blame here. And you have to wonder if this is one of those races where they clearly are talking about property taxes and they pointed to Fritz Kagi.
Let's go back to the Donna Miller. She had a lot more money.
She had, and that was one of the races where APAC spent $4+ million to support her. Now they spent it on a PAC, and it doesn't mean that she's going to be in the tank for that special interest or whatever other special interest, AI or crypto, because they supported PAC supporting her. And she said to us she is critical of Netanyahu. She believes in a 2-state solution. There's the far left of the Democratic Party that's pro-Palestine. Obviously, they're not happy with Israel over Iran and Palestine. I mean, and some of the Jewish community, by the way, Jewish American community, as Daniel Biss just said, believes in that kind of thing. So Israel has really fallen out of favor when it used to be a lock for the Democratic Party, for both parties. And the fringes of both parties have turned on Israel, basically, after what's going on in Palestine and in Iran. But closer to the center of both parties, Israel is still a strong ally. And so APAC didn't get the result they wanted. It's going to be a mixed party. And we don't have a clear picture of is the Democratic Party going to hew to the left or are they going to hew to the center? It just depends on the race in the district.
And it's going to come down to voter turnout here. And we heard from the Chicago Board of Elections that it might be till the end of the month that we start to count all the votes right here, especially when some of these races wanted to go with a more younger, they wanted to appeal to younger voters, the Gen Z there. But looking at some of the results here, it looked like it was more of a traditional voter, the older voter who is turning out for these elections. So when it comes to the younger generation potentially stepping up and taking the lead, it appears that the older generation is still making the decisions.
And do you think that's related to people who came out to vote, that the younger voters just did not vote in the primary?
I mean, that's always been a thing with young people not being able to vote, and it doesn't matter what election, whether it's a midterm election, whether it's a general election. Yeah. So just because somebody says something on social media doesn't mean they're going to go and actually vote and register to vote. So that's another thing. Is that
what you think happened in the BIS?
Well, in the 9th, the older voters were probably the strongest voters, as they always have been. We keep waiting. When's the sea change? When are the young voters taking over? When is it our country now? Not now. Yeah. It's still the older voters. It was still the retail politics. It was still, you got to... Danny Davis's chosen successor, LaShawn Ford, won. Jan Schakowsky's chosen successor won. So it still came down to those relationships and those traditional things, not who could TikTok the best. It's just not there yet.
What do you think are some of the other lessons that some of the losers in these big races will take with them as they go to the next cycle or the next job? For Raja, he's going to go back into public service of some kind.
That prolific fundraising doesn't always win you the race, especially when you're dealing with another prolific fundraiser like J.B. Pritzker. He went all in. He got up early, but Stratton's strategy was to close it out late. He was on the air first. She came on the air. I guess Pritzker, I don't know this, because the money from Pritzker didn't come till later in the game, so maybe that was their strategy, like, let Raja introduce himself. Now let's barrel in the closing weeks, and that's what she did.
Yeah.
And just because you have a lot of money in your war chest doesn't necessarily guarantee you the votes right there. It is one of those things where it guarantees that you'll get your message across here, but sometimes it just comes down to likability. Do they relate to you? How are you going to help me in an election? That's what it's going to come down to. But as far as the younger voters being able to turn out, we're still waiting for them right now.
All right. Well, Brett and Paris, thank you so much. Paris, you've been on all night. So have you. We appreciate your help. You're updating us on the numbers, and our coverage continues after baseball on Fox 32. But for now, we'll send it to break. We'll see you in a little bit.